Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere most people never think about. Somewhere between the crackle of a telegraph wire and the howl of a snowstorm. Picture this, you're the only person for 50 miles. A blizzard is howling outside. The telegraph hasn't clicked in days. You're running out of firewood. This was the life of Wild West telegraph operators, alone in tiny stations, fighting to stay warm and awake, or knowing when to surrender to sleep. Tonight, we'll explore how these isolated souls survive the deadliest winters on the frontier. Get cozy, let your mind wander, and drift into a story that will carry you gently into the deepest sleep. Welcome to your 3-hour journey through history. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stand in the middle of nowhere. The wind is screaming across an open plain, rolling in white waves that erase fences, trees, even the horizon. There's no difference between the ground and the sky, just one endless shifting sea of snow. The only thing holding your world together is a thin copper wire stretching over creaking poles that vanish into the distance. It hums faintly, a ghostly lifeline connecting you to civilization, or what's left of it. Your little wooden shack trembles under each gust, the roof tin flapping like the lid of a coffin. The potbelly stove in the corner glows weakly, orange light licking the walls, but it's losing the battle. You can smell the iron cooling. You throw in the last piece of coal and watch it sizzle like a dying star. That's it. The next time the fire fades, so does your warmth, and you're not sure which will freeze first, your fingers or the telegraph line. It's strange, this job. You weren't hired to fight the weather, but somehow that's all it's ever about. When the Pacific Telegraph line was finished in 1861, connecting California to the east, people called it a miracle. The first message raced across the continent in minutes, announcing unity, progress, the future. But for you, the operator out here, it's more like a curse of responsibility. Every click you send could mean a shipment of medicine making it through the mountains, or a family finding out their son didn't survive the trail. You hold the heartbeat of the frontier in your frostbitten hands. You rub your palms together, trying to summon feeling back into them. The key sits on the desk, cold as bone, its brass lever waiting. You can almost sense the past trapped inside it. Layers of messages, love letters, warnings, maybe even last words. The wind rattles the door, and for a second, you imagine it's someone knocking, but it never is. It never has been. Some operators in those early years swore they could hear the blizzard through the wire itself. A faint, low moan that pulsed with the storm, as if the wind was trying to learn Morse code. Maybe it's the mind playing tricks. Maybe it's the way sound carries through frozen copper. Historians still argue whether such stories were exaggerations or a rare kind of weather-induced vibration, but you're not debating tonight. You're living it. You hear the wire sing, you feel it shiver, and you think, maybe it's not just the living on this line. A candle flickers near your elbow. You cup it with your hand, though you know it's futile. Each time the wind slams against the shack, the flame bows low, whispering a kind of apology. You've developed odd rituals to keep yourself sane, counting the seconds between gusts, humming tunes no one else remembers, talking to the stove as if it's your oldest friend. Somewhere out there, there's a line of poles stretching through the storm, each one leaning slightly more than the last. Together, they make a kind of music, the metallic hum of endurance. You think about the other operators scattered across the plains, ghosts in their own cabins, fighting the same fight. Some sleep sitting up, a blanket around their shoulders, one ear always listening for a message that might never come. Others prop their heads on telegraph desks, faces lit by the dim ember glow. There's no comfort, no luxury, only survival and rhythm. And tonight, as you close your eyes for a moment too long, you swear you hear it. A single dot, a dash, then another, an urgent signal cutting through the blizzard. Or maybe it's your heartbeat, syncing with the sound of the storm, reminding you that even out here, in the loneliest part of the Wild West, the world still speaks to those who listen closely enough. The wind hasn't stopped for days. You start to think it has a personality, a cruel, mischievous one that laughs each time you try to patch the cracks around the window. Inside, the little station looks less like a workplace and more like a forgotten experiment. Every surface hums faintly with static. Wires snake across the floor, wrapped in bits of cloth and candle wax to keep them from shorting out. The smell of ozone lingers in the air, sharp and metallic, mixing with the smoky tang of your dying fire. It's a symphony of survival. Electricity, smoke, and breath. You pace the floorboards, counting your steps. 7 across, 4 wide. That's the size of your universe. Outside, a million snowflakes are waging their war, burying the door, the poles, maybe the very road that once connected you to somewhere else. The telegraph shack was built cheap, fast, and with the optimistic idea that men could endure anything if they were built of the right stuff. You laugh softly at that. Right stuff feels like a cruel joke when your coffee's frozen solid in the pot. You remember reading once that the Western Union Company, your employer, though they feel more like a distant deity, paid extra hazard wages for winter posts like this. Not much, of course, just enough for them to say they valued courage. They called you Keepers of the Wire, a grand title for someone whose most heroic act right now is keeping the stove lit and your socks dry. Still, you suppose it's true. Without you, the line dies, and with it, the voices that travel through the wilderness. You run your hand along the wooden wall, feeling the vibration of the wire outside. It's like touching a heartbeat. The telegraph poles, each one sunk deep in frozen soil, carry more than messages. They carry the illusion that civilization can stretch endlessly westward. Some say this line is what truly united the country, not the railroad. Others argue the opposite, that the click of the key was the sound of progress, stealing the soul of the frontier. Historians still argue whether the telegraph tamed the West or simply killed its silence. You sit back down at the table, staring at the glass insulators piled in a corner. They're blue, green, and clear. Beautiful little things when the light hits them just right. You'd never admit it to the company men, but you collect them. Each one feels like a trophy from a battle against the elements. Some operators melt snow in them for drinking water. Others use them as candle holders. You tried that once. The heat cracked one in half with a pop loud enough to make you think the wire had snapped. You laughed for 5 whole seconds before realizing how precious those seconds were. Warmth through laughter, as fleeting as the flame itself. There's a rhythm to the loneliness here. You wake when the stove sputters, you eat when you remember to, and you sleep in bursts, like the messages you send. You write letters to yourself sometimes, just for practice, folding them neatly and sliding them under the telegraph logbook. Maybe someone will find them one day and think you were a philosopher, not just a tired clerk keeping the world connected one dot and dash at a time. The shack creaks again. Snow seeps through the gap under the door, forming a tiny white dune. You shovel it back out with a frying pan, your one multi-tool. Somewhere in town people are sleeping under quilts, but you've got the comfort of wire hum and the soft clink of your coffee cup thawing by the stove. There's an odd peace in that, the kind that only comes when there's nothing left to lose except another night's warmth. As the hours drag on, you start to think the walls are breathing. Every expansion, every contraction matches your heartbeat. You lean back, listening. There's no voice from the line tonight, no news, no company orders. Just you, the shack, and the blizzard playing Morse code against the windows. For a moment, you let yourself imagine the whole world is on the other side of that wire, waiting for you to fall asleep before whispering back. You rub your eyes and stare at the telegraph key like it's an old friend who's forgotten your name. The brass glints weakly in the lamplight, edges dulled by frost and fingerprints. You've spent so many nights hunched over it that the grooves of the lever have shaped themselves into your thumb. You, the keeper of messages, you whisper, half mocking, half proud. The title sounds heroic in the company pamphlets, but out here, it feels like a confession. You're the voice for everyone too far away to shout across the snow, the unseen bridge between tragedies and their witnesses. Outside, the storm rages like it's trying to erase the horizon. Every gust drums against the walls, demanding entry. You can almost imagine it jealous of the line, that slender thread that carries words farther than the wind ever could. The Morse clicks you send aren't just noise. They're tiny rebellions against oblivion. Each tap is a heartbeat that refuses to stop. A proof that someone, somewhere, is still alive. You think of the stories you've transmitted. Births, deaths, shipments, secrets. There was the time a rancher paid extra for a coded message to his lover, written entirely in Morse abbreviations no one else could read. You remember chuckling when he used 88, the operator's shorthand for love and kisses. Quirky, how romance found its way even into dots and dashes. Somewhere along the line, someone thought up that code, and now it drifts between poles and storms like a private language of affection. You lean back, stretching your stiff shoulders. The sound of your own bones cracking reminds you how small this body feels against the vastness outside. You're not supposed to feel lonely, not officially. The company manuals claim operators enjoy healthy solitude. Historians still argue whether those men really did, or if they simply went half mad and learned to name the shadows. Maybe that's why some operators left strange carvings on station walls, scratched initials, poems, little faces made of soot and knife marks, art therapy before the term existed. A message crackles through the receiver, faint but distinct. You spring to life, hand trembling as you decode the rhythm. Snowbad stop train, delayed stop, keep line open stop. The words are cold as the air itself. You tap back a short acknowledgement, and the wire hums again before falling silent. You've done your duty, but duty doesn't keep you warm. You look around the shack, trying to spot anything that feels human. A photograph tacked above the desk shows a group of men squinting into the sun, standing beside telegraph poles taller than their hopes. They called it stringing the wire. The first transcontinental line, completed in the middle of the Civil War, stretched over 2,000 miles. They say the first message sent between the coasts was to President Lincoln, informing him that California stood with the Union. You imagine how that must have felt. Unity buzzing through copper, progress crackling in real time. But here, a decade later, progress feels less like glory and more like a cage. You're tethered to your desk by invisible obligation, the same way the line ties the land together. You wonder what happens if you just stop, if you walk out into the snow and let the world go quiet for a night. Would anyone notice? Would the messages pile up like drifts, waiting for a hand that never returns? You take a slow breath, exhaling a ghost of steam. The telegraph key sits there, still and patient, like a loyal dog waiting for its owner's voice. You press it gently, 1.1-1 heartbeat. The sound fills the shack, small and sacred. In the distance, thunder rolls beneath the storm. Or maybe it's the vibration of a passing herd, or a memory echoing through the plains. You can't tell anymore. Out here, every sound could be a message. Every silence could be an answer. And you, half dreamer, half watchman, sit between the two, translating the endless breath of the frontier into a language only the sleepless can understand. Snow presses against the glass like an impatient guest, tracing icy fingers down the window pane until the frost blossoms in perfect crystal veins. You watch it grow, a living map of cold that spreads with every breath you exhale. The storm outside is no longer a sound. It's a shape, a rhythm, a presence that fills the night. The shack feels smaller with every gust, the walls bending inward like they're bowing to something ancient and relentless. You hold your mug close, but the coffee inside has turned to sludge, bitter and lukewarm, a far cry from comfort. You rise and feed the stove another scrap of wood. It protests with a spark that jumps and dies before it reaches the floor. You'd trade almost anything for one more sack of coal. Operators used to burn fence rails when supplies ran out. Some even dismantled their own floorboards. You once read that in the winter of '73, a man near Fort Laramie burned his telegraph pole for heat, then reported the outage by horse the next day. You grin at the absurdity of it. That desperate human urge to live first, explain later. The walls creak, shifting like a tired body. You can hear the snow piling up outside, soft and heavy. There's no sound quite like it. The muffled hush of falling snow, swallowing distance, swallowing time. Inside, your world becomes a cocoon of dim light and slow thoughts. Every surface sweats with condensation, the air thick enough to taste. You reach out to touch the window again, your fingertip leaving a brief circle of warmth that fades faster than memory. You've learned to measure the hours not by the clock, but by the temperature of your breath. When it forms clouds that linger in front of your face, you know the fire's losing. When it disappears instantly, you know you've got a few precious minutes left. Historians still argue whether these small, isolated telegraph stations were intended for one operator or two. Company records contradict themselves, but you've never met anyone who had the luxury of company. Even when paired, one would often leave in search of wood or food and never come back. The line never forgave absence. You glance at the wire spool on the shelf. Copper glows faintly under candlelight, a quiet promise of connection. You think about the invisible electricity running through it, the invisible faith you've built around it. They said electricity was a kind of magic when it first came westward. Instant speech carried on metal. Some old settlers refused to believe in it. They said it was the devil's breath, that no good could come from stealing thunder from the sky. Yet, here you are, a modern sorcerer, bending lightning into words, though you can barely keep your toes from freezing. You move your cot closer to the stove, dragging it across the floor with a groan. The mattress is nothing more than a pile of burlap sacks stuffed with straw, but it's home enough. You sit on the edge, unlace your boots, and rub your feet until the pins and needles sensation fades. The silence deepens. You could swear the storm is listening to you, waiting for you to lie down. Your hand drifts toward the key again. Out of habit, you press it once, just to feel alive, to feel the faint pulse beneath your fingertips. The line hums in reply, a ghost heartbeat echoing from somewhere far away. Maybe another operator is still awake, watching his own frost creep along the walls, listening to the same storm through different boards. The thought warms you more than the fire does. You stretch out on the cot, pull your coat over your chest, and stare at the ceiling beams trembling under the weight of snow. You think of all the words you've carried across this land, all the voices that pass through your hands. Maybe this is what faith feels like, not belief in a god or a nation, but in the fragile thread of wire that hums with human longing. You close your eyes, letting the sound of the storm fade into that hum and drift between waking and memory, as the snow outside buries everything but the sound of your heartbeat in the wire. You wake before dawn, though dawn itself feels meaningless when the world outside is nothing but white. The shack groans like an old ship at sea, and for a second, you imagine yourself adrift on frozen waves instead of stranded on a prairie. Your body aches from sleeping in fits, 10 minutes here, a half hour there, each rest broken by the cracking of timbers or the hiss of wind slipping through nail holes. You blink the frost from your eyelashes and stare at the bunk you just crawled out of. A narrow wooden frame hammered together from old telegraph crates, the kind that once carried coils of wire and glass insulators across the plains. That's your bed. No mattress, no springs, just the hollow echo of cargo once destined for civilization. You stuff the cracks between the boards with burlap and old newspapers, but it still hums faintly, picking up the stray vibrations from the telegraph line outside. It's strange, sleeping on something that sings to you. Sometimes, in the half-dream hours, it feels like the bed itself is whispering messages from faraway towns. Short bursts of static lullabies. You tell yourself it's nonsense, yet when the wind dies, the hum becomes distinct enough that you find yourself listening. You sit up, rubbing your shoulders, the chill biting through every layer of wool and flannel. In the corner, the stove smolders low, a single ember clinging to life. You kneel, coaxing it with breath and kindling. The warmth crawls back slowly, wrapping around your hands like an old friend. You mutter to yourself, the sound oddly comforting. They say solitude makes people talk to objects, stoves, spoons, even their own boots, and you're not above that. The telegraph key has heard more confessions than most priests. There's a stack of crates near your feet, remnants of the last delivery before the snow cut you off. Each is stamped with black letters. Property of Western Union Telegraph Co., Omaha District. You remember when those letters used to make you feel part of something larger, a great electric web binding the continent together. Now they feel more like a brand on your ribs, marking you as company property too. In 1876, the company reached over 200,000 miles of wire, more than any other in the world. It was a triumph of connection, they said. But out here, you start to wonder if too much connection can make a man feel more alone. You roll a cigarette from scrap tobacco and light it with a burning splinter from the stove. The smoke curls upward, soft and sweet, mingling with the scent of charred pine. A faint crackle interrupts the quiet, the line outside twitching in the wind. You pause mid-drag. The wire trembles, sending a vibration down the wall, through the floorboards, into your bed frame. It feels like a heartbeat. You lean down and press your ear against the crate, listening. Nothing but a hum, steady and low. You smile, half amused, half unnerved. Some claim that the old telegraph wires could sing in the wind, like stringed instruments of the plains. Scientists blamed it on the resonance of tensioned metal under specific gust speeds, but a few insisted it was something else. Electricity reacting to the cold air, or even the souls of dead operators carried along the line. Historians still argue whether those singing wires were real phenomenon or pure myth born of long isolation. But the debate feels irrelevant when you've heard it yourself. Whatever it is, it's alive enough to haunt your dreams. You stretch again, pulling the blanket tighter around your shoulders. The room is so small that your breath rebounds off the walls, soft echoes like invisible company. You can hear snow sliding off the roof, the slow sigh of surrender. Outside, the poles lean under their burden, wood cracking faintly like knuckles. You think of all the nights ahead and feel a strange kind of pride. You're still here. The line is still alive. You climb back into your makeshift bed and lay your head against the crate boards. The hum begins again, faint but rhythmic, a lullaby of iron and distance. You close your eyes, imagining that somewhere far away, another operator is doing the same. They're caught humming with the same invisible music, two strangers sharing one fragile song through storm and static. And just like that you drift, not into deep sleep, but into that peculiar trance known only to those who live between messages and dreams. Sleep comes in fragments, short bursts of warmth between the long conversations you have with the storm. You dream in Morse now, though you never mean to. The dots and dashes crawl into your head like lullabies with sharp edges, threading their way through your breathing until your pulse starts answering back. You tap your fingers against the blanket without realizing it. Tiny signals to no one in particular. That's when the line between waking and dreaming starts to fade. The way candle smoke blurs a room's edges. You shift on the bunk, the boards beneath you groaning in rhythm with the wind. Outside, the blizzard rages on, grinding against the walls like it's trying to erase the idea of shelter altogether. The noise becomes hypnotic. You find patterns in it, voices even, the same way sailors once heard songs in the waves. It's easy to believe in strange things when you haven't spoken to another living soul in a week. You close your eyes, and the tapping starts again. First faint, then clear enough that you could swear it's coming from the desk. You sit up, rubbing your face. The sound continues. ... Your brain translates it automatically, even half asleep. But the message makes no sense. Random letters strung together, no sender's call sign. Maybe it's interference from another station. Maybe it's the wind nudging the wire against the pole. Or maybe it's your own hand, moving without your permission. You'd heard of that happening. Operators so used to the rhythm they sent messages in their sleep, fingers twitching on phantom keys. You get up, shuffle to the table, and touch the brass lever. It's cold enough to burn your skin. You listen. Nothing now. Just silence and the hiss of snow. You exhale a shaky laugh, though it comes out more like a sigh. The room feels alive again, charged with the faint electricity of unease. You recall reading about the wire fever, a term some frontier doctors used for the nervous exhaustion that plagued operators. They said it was caused by the endless clicking, the mental strain of constant translation between sound and meaning. A few called it a new kind of madness, born of technology itself. Historians still debate whether it was truly psychological or just the body's rebellion against monotony and cold. Either way, you're starting to understand it. Your nerves twitch with phantom signals, even in silence. You sit back down and pour yourself a cup of something that used to be coffee. The liquid is black and bitter, with ice crystals floating on top. You sip anyway. The heat of it, barely there, feels like mercy. Your reflection in the tin mug looks older, drawn thin by sleepless nights and the endless glare of snow. You talk to yourself again, just to fill the air. The sound of your voice feels foreign, as if it belongs to someone else entirely. When you finally lie down, you leave one hand on the desk, fingers brushing the telegraph key. It's become your security blanket, your last connection to life beyond this frozen station. You start to drift again, the rhythmic ticking of the cooling stove matching the rhythm of your heartbeat. The wind outside howls a steady counterpoint. Somewhere between the two, you begin to dream. You're at the key again, tapping out a message you can't read. The clicks echo, louder than thunder, until they become words you recognize. Names, places, things you've never sent before. It's as if the wire itself is dreaming through you. You wake with a start, heart racing, unsure if you actually heard it or only imagined it. The room is still, the world unchanged. Only your fingers are moving, gently tapping against the edge of the blanket like a lullaby meant for ghosts. You pull your coat tighter around you and let the exhaustion wash over. Sleep isn't peace here, it's negotiation. You promise the storm you'll stay awake, and it promises to let you rest for an hour. You close your eyes once more, the telegraph hums seeping back into your bones, and somewhere in that soft blur between dream and duty, you find a sliver of calm. The silence hits harder than the storm ever could. You wake to it, the kind of silence that feels wrong, like a note missing from a song you've heard your entire life. No wind, no hum, No whisper of static from the wire, just stillness so deep that your heartbeat sounds intrusive. You sit up too fast, head spinning from the sudden motion. The world outside glows pale through the window, endless white rolling across the plains. You should feel relief that the blizzard has passed, but instead, you feel dread curling in your gut, because the line has gone quiet. You stumble to the desk and press your hand to the key. Nothing. No answering click. No faint vibration from another station. You press again, harder this time, sending your call sign into the void. CQ, CQ, CQ. But the void doesn't answer. The silence feels heavy, deliberate. You press your ear to the wall where the wire runs through the shack, as if you might hear its heartbeat again. Still nothing. You pull on your coat, boots stiff with frost, and shove the door open. The light outside stabs your eyes. Snow piled high against the frame, reflecting a sun that looks more like a distant lamp than salvation. You wade into it, every step crunching like breaking glass. The poles stretch into the distance. Crooked sentinels half buried in white. Somewhere out there, a connection has snapped. You follow the wire with your eyes until it vanishes into the horizon, its black lines swallowed by the glare. The telegraph system was supposed to be invincible. At least, that's what the papers said when Western Union finished stringing the Continental Line. Unbroken communication from ocean to ocean, they boasted. But even the company knew better. Blizzards like this one had brought down miles of wire before. In 1869, a single storm in Wyoming snapped over 100 poles, cutting off the entire region for days. The men who tried to repair it froze in their harnesses, climbing half-buried poles while others lit fires beneath them to thaw the tools. You remember reading that in a training manual once, tucked between paragraphs about Morse efficiency and proper grounding. They made it sound noble. It wasn't. It was survival. You walk to the nearest pole. The wire hums faintly when you touch it, though that might just be your own pulse echoing through your glove. You pull the line down gently. It's taut but not broken. That's worse somehow. It means the failure's somewhere far away beyond your reach. You imagine miles of snow-drowned prairie, poles leaning under the weight, the line cutting through the white like a frozen vein. Somewhere along it, the signal has died, and you can't do a damn thing about it. You trudge back toward the shack, your breath sharp in the cold. A dark shape catches your eye near the door. A bird, small and rigid, wings spread like it tried to take flight in the last second. You crouch and brush away the frost from its feathers. A blackbird of all things. You remember hearing once that early operators used to blame birds for outages. Said they'd perch on the lines and peck at the glass insulators, mistaking them for berries. Scientists laughed that off, but you liked the idea. It's comforting, in a strange way, to imagine something living could interrupt all this machinery. Back inside, you hang your coat by the stove and sit at the desk again. The key looks innocent, almost bored. You tap it once out of habit. The sound echoes through the empty room like a gunshot. You whisper to it, "Come on, talk to me." But the wire stays mute. You think about how dependent you've become on that click, that rhythm. Without it, the silence feels unnatural, unbearable. It's funny. People used to believe the telegraph would isolate humanity, that talking through machines would kill conversation. Yet for you, this machine is companionship. Historians still argue whether the telegraph connected or alienated the frontier. Did it make the wilderness smaller or lonelier? You're leaning toward lonelier tonight. Hours pass. The light outside fades from white to blue to black again. You've checked the stove, the wire, even your own sanity, and found no comfort in any of them. You wrap yourself in your blanket and stare at the wall, listening to the ticking of the clock. The sound is steady but cruel. It measures time without mercy. At some point, you start talking aloud again. You recite Morse code tables, the alphabet, then half-forgotten stories you heard from passing riders. You talk until your voice cracks, until the silence begins to feel like an answer. And then, in the deepest part of night, just when you've almost given up, the key trembles. One faint click, then another. You freeze, breath caught in your chest. You wait, listening. The sound comes again, uneven, fragile, but real. You lean in close, translating the pattern instinctively. Hello, hello, hello. Then nothing. You sit there a long while, staring at the key as if it might speak again. Maybe it's static. Maybe the wind found the right angle to trick your ears. Or maybe, somewhere hundreds of miles away, another frozen operator is doing exactly what you're doing, tapping into the void, desperate to know they're not alone. You reach out, and with shaking fingers, you answer, "Hello" back. And for a few heartbeats, Before the silence returns, the world feels connected again. You've been awake so long that time has lost its edges. The line is still weak, a whisper at best, but at least it breathes again. That faint hum is all it takes to keep you going. To make the cold feel less like a punishment and more like a test. You move slower now, conserving energy the way some animals do in winter. Every motion feels deliberate, sacred almost. Stoking the stove, winding the clock, melting snow in a tin cup for water. Survival has become a ritual. The food situation is becoming dire. You've got half a loaf of hard bread, a few dried beans, and a can of something that might once have been stew. You look at the label, faded, peeling, and laugh softly. Soup, it claims, as if the word alone might warm you. You pry it open with your knife, the metal shrieking in protest. The contents slide out with a dull thud. Cold, congealed, you grimace. And that's when the idea hits you. Half desperation, half foolish inspiration. You look at the Telegraph battery on the shelf. That beautiful blue glass jar filled with copper plates and acid. It hums faintly, giving life to the wire. You think, if it can carry a signal across a continent, maybe it can heat a meal across a few inches. You've read stories about operators doing it, running current through spare coils to warm their soup when the stove gave out. Most called it a myth, but right now, myth sounds better than hunger. You rig it carefully, looping a length of fine copper wire around the can and connecting it to the spare terminal. The hum deepens. You hold your breath, half expecting sparks, half hoping for them. The air smells faintly of ozone and tin. Then, miracle of miracles, a wisp of steam curls upward. You laugh. A small, genuine sound that fills the cabin like music. It works, if only a little. The soup warms enough to melt into something edible. It tastes faintly metallic, but you don't care. You eat it slowly, savoring every mouthful like it's a banquet. It's strange how comfort shifts out here. Back in the towns, Cheyenne, Laramie, Rawlins, people talk about the telegraph as a wonder of civilization. Instant communication, the heartbeat of modernity. But for you, it's not about progress or invention. It's about this. The absurd joy of coaxing warmth from a coil of wire while snow buries the world outside. When you're done, you set the can aside and watch the smoke curl toward the rafters. You imagine your message, your signal, riding those same invisible currents, reaching another operator who's probably eating cold beans from a can of his own. You wonder if he's improvising too, outsmarting the cold with equal parts courage and foolishness. There was a time when the government debated whether the telegraph should belong to the public or remain in private hands. The argument went on for years. Some said the line was too important to trust to businessmen, that it should be treated like a national highway of information. Others claimed government control would smother innovation. Historians still argue over who was right. But sitting here, wrapped in a threadbare coat with a belly full of wire-cooked soup, you can't help thinking both sides missed the point. Out here, ownership doesn't matter, only endurance does. You lean back in your chair and look around the shack. The walls glow softly from the firelight, wood grain rippling in the flicker. The stove purrs now, content with its small meal of twigs and splinters. You close your eyes and listen to the hum of the line again, steady and low. It sounds like breath, like the land itself is exhaling after the storm's rage. A memory surfaces, unbidden. Your first night on the job. You were 18, posted at a relay station in Kansas. The old operator who trained you, Whitaker, told you 2 rules. Never let the line die, he said, and never eat snow, no matter how thirsty you get. You asked why, and he grinned that tobacco-stained grin of his. Because snow's a liar, he said. Looks like water, but it'll steal your warmth one sip at a time. You think of him now, his voice drifting somewhere between the wires, maybe laughing at you using electricity to make soup. The night stretches long. You write in your logbook, careful script despite your shaking hand. The entries have become more like diary pages than records. You note the temperature, the faint static on the line, and then, without meaning to, you add a sentence about the way the moonlight hits the snow. It's poetry disguised as duty. Maybe someday, someone will read it and think this was a grand adventure. They won't smell the iron in the air or feel the ache in your bones. But maybe they'll understand the strange beauty of it all. The way survival can feel like art. The hum of the telegraph dips suddenly. You glance at it, waiting for the sound to return. It does, faint but steady. You whisper, "Good girl," as though the line were alive. And maybe in a way it is. You take the empty can, Rinse it with melted snow and place it neatly beside the logbook. The station feels calm again. Fragile, temporary, but calm. You lie down on your bunk, coat pulled up to your chin, hands still smelling faintly of copper and smoke. The world beyond these walls has vanished into silence, but inside, the smallest miracles keep you alive. And as you close your eyes, you think. Not of messages, not of duty, not even of the cold, but of the soft hiss of current and the warmth it gave, however briefly. In this place, even the hum of electricity feels like the voice of mercy. The company rulebook sits on the shelf above your desk, its leather cover cracked and curling from years of heat and frost. You haven't opened it in weeks, but you know every word. You had to memorize them before being assigned to this outpost. 56 pages of regulation, written by men who'd probably never spent a night alone on the frontier. You reach up, pull it down, and thumb through the pages. Operator must remain alert at all times. Sleep while on duty is strictly prohibited. Maintain decorum. You laugh softly at that last one. If they could see you now, hair matted, shirt scorched with coal dust, muttering to a stove as if it were your assistant, they'd strike you off the payroll. You close the book and let it drop onto the table with a dull thud. Out here, the rules feel more like riddles. Stay awake, but not too long, or you'll start seeing things. Keep warm, but don't burn too much coal, or you'll run out before spring. Stay connected, but don't lose your mind listening to the line whisper nonsense through the night. You can't win. You can only last. You sit at the desk again, eyes fixed on the telegraph key. It's the one law you can't break. The line must never go unanswered. That single command binds every operator from Texas to Montana. Even if the station burns, even if your hands freeze solid, you're supposed to answer the call. They say one man in the Dakota Territory once kept his station open for 6 days without sleep during a blizzard in 1872, tapping messages with his knuckles after his fingers went numb. The company wrote him a commendation letter. He died 3 weeks later of pneumonia. You wonder if they ever sent his family the letter, or if it just disappeared into some dusty drawer back east. The telegraph key clicks once, startling you. It's faint, almost hesitant, like someone whispering from miles away. You lean forward, translating automatically. CHK, LN, stop, report, condition, stop. You respond with steady hands. LN, active, stop, weather clear, stop. The sound travels down the wire, a small reassurance sent through miles of cold metal. Then silence again. The duty fulfilled. You pull your coat tighter and glance toward the cot in the corner. Your body begs for rest. The rulebook says no sleeping while on shift, but the body has its own rules. You sit for a moment, calculating risk against exhaustion. If you doze for 20 minutes, maybe 30, the line will survive. The line always survives. You rest your head on your arms and let your eyes close. Dreams come fast, too fast. You're back home in Missouri. Fields golden and endless. No snow anywhere. No wire humming through the wind. Your father is calling to you from the porch, telling you to fetch water before supper, but his voice keeps slipping into Morse rhythm, dots and dashes instead of words. You try to answer, but your mouth moves like a telegraph key, clattering nonsense into the air. Then the scene fractures. You're sitting at your desk again, only this time the wire is glowing red hot, pulsing like a vein. It hums a tune, a lullaby you think you recognize but can't name. You reach out to touch it. The sound explodes. You wake with a jerk, breath sharp in your throat. The stove has gone dark again, and the air bites at your face. The clock says you slept for nearly an hour. You curse under your breath, though quietly, as if someone might overhear. You check the key. No messages waiting. Relief slides through you, followed by shame. You've broken the rule. A small thing maybe, but it feels like betrayal. You write a note in the logbook to make yourself feel better. Operator rested briefly due to exhaustion. No communication missed. It's the kind of line a company man would approve of. You pour yourself water, more habit than thirst, and glance at the rulebook again. The edges catch the light, faint gold against the shadows. There's something both noble and absurd about it. The way it tries to impose order on chaos. Historians still debate whether those strict codes of conduct made operators more disciplined or just more fragile. Some say the endless regulation gave them purpose, a structure to cling to in isolation. Others argue it pushed them further into madness, demanding machine-like efficiency from flesh and blood. Sitting here, with frost forming on your eyelashes, you know which side you'd bet on. You light the stove again, coaxing the flame back from a spark. The warmth feels like forgiveness. The rules were written for men in cities, not for ghosts on the edge of the world. Out here, survival is decorum. Out here, every broken rule is a prayer for one more sunrise. You lean back in your chair, eyes half closed, letting the glow fill the room. The Telegraph hums softly again, a steady companion. You whisper, "I'm still here." Not sure if you're speaking to the line, the storm, or yourself. And for once, you don't care which listens. You don't believe in ghosts. Not officially anyway. But after enough nights alone with the storm and the wire, you stop making bold statements about what's real. The mind plays tricks when the horizon vanishes. And tonight, the air inside the shack feels different, still, electric, expectant. The line has been too quiet again, not dead, but sulking, like an animal refusing to come when called. You sit by the desk, waiting for the first click, the familiar heartbeat of connection. Nothing comes. You lean closer, ear hovering above the brass key. The faintest vibration trembles under your fingertips, then click, click. You straighten immediately. The rhythm is odd, hesitant. The first sequence makes no sense. You jot it down, then check again. The letters spell your own call sign. Someone out there is calling you. You tap back. To station 14. Stop, state, call, sign, stop. But instead of a reply, the sound repeats. Your sign again. Then a pause. Then something new. A pattern you don't recognize. You decode it 3 times before it sinks in. The message reads, "Cold enough for you." You blink, unsure whether to laugh or shiver. The phrase feels like a joke, but the timing, the phrasing, it's too human to be static. You answer anyway. Yes. Stop, who is this? Stop. The reply is instant, faster than human hands could move. Hello back, you freeze. That's what you sent during the storm. Those exact words. The echo of your own voice returning from nowhere. You check the line voltage, the contacts, the relay. All normal. So what is this? You've heard the stories, of course. Every operator has. Phantom transmissions. Lines that click long after the next station has shut down. Messages looping endlessly across the plains. There was a tale from Kansas in the early 1880s. 2 operators, 40 miles apart, kept receiving replies days after one of them had died of exposure. The company dismissed it as crosswire interference, but the men who replaced them swore they heard the dead man's call sign echoing on clear nights. Some say the copper remembers. Some say the wind learns the code. Historians still argue about whether those accounts were hoaxes, hysteria, or an early form of what we'd now call radio interference. You can almost picture scholars in neat suits debating it over coffee, safe and warm, far from the biting breath of the frontier. They'd never understand how convincing a ghost becomes when you can feel its rhythm through the floorboards. You send another message, slower this time. State your location. Stop. No response. You try again, fingers trembling. Are you alive? Stop. The key stays silent. A gust of wind shakes the wall, and the lamp flickers, sending long shadows crawling across the room. You exhale through your teeth. All right, you mutter. Maybe I'm talking to my own echo. You close the logbook, but leave your hand resting on the key, half expecting another pulse. Instead, you hear something behind you. A faint scraping sound, like cloth brushing against wood. You turn slowly. The door moves slightly in its frame, nudged by the draft. The shadows on the far wall twitch with each flicker of the flame. You tell yourself it's nothing, because it has to be nothing. Still, your pulse won't slow. You stand, walk to the window, and peer out. The snow glows blue in the moonlight. The poles march away in a perfect line, black specks fading into infinity. And then you see it. Just for an instant. A figure standing by the third pole, motionless, watching. The light shifts, and the shape dissolves. You step back from the window, throat dry. Snow trick, you whisper. Just the light. You repeat it until it feels like truth. When you finally return to the desk, the key clicks once, sharp and deliberate. You lean forward, half dreading, half longing for the next sound. It comes. Go to sleep. You stare at the letters, unsure whether to laugh or obey. The storm outside begins again. Wind keening through the gaps in the walls, like someone whispering your name. You answer. One final tap. Not yet. Then you set the key down and rest your hand over it, feeling the faint warmth of metal beneath your palm. Maybe it's imagination, maybe not. But for the first time all winter, You feel less alone. Later, as you lie on your cot, the line hums softly, steady as breathing. You could swear you hear words forming in the rhythm, just fragments, nonsense, or maybe lullabies. You don't bother translating. Some messages aren't meant to be read, only felt. You pull your coat tighter, the glow from the lamp turning the frost on the window to gold. The blizzard can rage all at once outside. You've got your ghost, your line, and the pulse of something ancient keeping you company. And if, as you drift towards sleep, you hear your own call sign whisper back one more time, you don't flinch. You just smile into the dark and whisper, "Message received." The blizzard returns the next evening louder than before, as if it had only retreated to gather strength. Snow slams against the roof with a fury that shakes the rafters, and the telegraph pole nearest the shack groans under its burden. You watch the window pane rattle in its frame and think, so this is what forever sounds like. The wind has a voice tonight, long, hollow, and strange. It moans in frequencies that rise and fall like a living thing trying to speak. You close your eyes for a moment, and in that wavering pitch, you think you hear something deliberate, something patterned. It's not Morse exactly, but it almost could be. You lean closer to the window, the glass cold enough to sting your cheek. Outside, everything is in motion. Snow swirling, wires thrumming, the air itself vibrating with tension. There's no way to tell where one sound ends and another begins. You whisper, "All right then, talk to me," as if the storm might answer. And perhaps, in a way, it does. The sound shifts again, higher this time. A whistle that climbs through octaves and fades into a deep rumble. You remember reading an old article once, back when you were training, about how telegraph wires could pick up the natural frequencies of the wind, turning miles of metal into a vast stringed instrument. Some operators said the planes themselves sang through the wires. Others said it was nonsense, just vibrations echoing between poles. But you can't shake the feeling that you're hearing something intentional. Nature's own telegraph, maybe. You reach for the key, half expecting it to answer on its own. For a long while, nothing happens. Then click, one single delicate tap. You freeze staring at it. The timing doesn't match any message you know. It feels more like punctuation, as if the storm just signed its name. A draft creeps through the door, carrying the smell of snow and pine resin. You toss more splinters into the stove, the fire popping back to life with a flash of amber light. You imagine the sound waves outside bouncing along the wire, carrying bits of air and electricity hundreds of miles, threading through towns you'll never see. It's a strange comfort, the idea that even the wind is connected to you through that endless line. The telegraph system was called the nervous system of civilization when it first spread across America. Every message was a synapse firing between faraway minds, every operator a nerve ending straining to translate thought into motion. By 1880, those lines carried millions of messages a year, binding the coasts together faster than trains or horses ever could. But there's another side to it. The eerie stillness between signals, the silence that stretches for hours, sometimes days. That silence could drive a man to madness. You've seen it happen before. In Kansas City, there was an operator named Harris, young, clever, too proud for his own good. One night, after a week of storms and outages, he began claiming that the static from the line contained whispering voices. When they found him, he dismantled half his equipment, insisting he was translating the storm. The company hushed it up, sent him east for recuperation. Whether he recovered, no one ever said. Historians still argue about stories like his, whether they were evidence of mental strain or just myths invented by lonely men. Either way, you understand the temptation. Listening long enough, you can start to believe anything with a rhythm has meaning. You sit back, wrapping your blanket around your shoulders. The room feels smaller tonight, the shadows deeper. You can hear the line humming faintly again, steady and soft, as if the world outside is catching its breath. You start tapping idly, a slow pattern, not real code, just something to fill the air. The key answers in a way you can't explain, a single sympathetic click that feels like acknowledgement. Fine, you murmur. You win. You decide to record the sounds, noting in your logbook that the line seems alive in the wind. Future operators might laugh at you, but maybe one will understand. The way sound can become presence. The way presence can feel like company. You pour what's left of your water into the kettle, setting it near the fire. Steam curls upward, joining the breath of the shack. The walls creak again, not from weakness this time, but from endurance. wood remembering all the storms it survived. You glance at the window, the frost tracing veins of silver over the glass. Each branch pattern looks like a map of all the places you'll never go. Another gust hits, stronger than the last, and the line outside sings once more. A deep, resonant tone that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. You close your eyes and listen. The sound moves through you, a vibration in your bones. It feels ancient, almost holy. Maybe that's what prayer sounds like to the wind. You sit there for a long time, letting the song of the storm fill the space where loneliness used to live. For the first time in weeks, you don't feel trapped inside the shack. You feel connected to the wire, to the land, to something greater that doesn't care about rules or paychecks or company manuals. You take a deep breath, slow and deliberate, matching your rhythm to the hum outside. When you finally whisper goodnight, it's not to the world or to yourself. It's to the sound, the wild, haunting language of the blizzard singing through 1,000 miles of copper and air, and maybe, just maybe, it hums your name in reply. You've started giving the clock a name. Clara, you call her, after your mother, though you're not sure why. Maybe because she nags you with the same stubborn rhythm, tick, tick, tick. It's the only other voice that never leaves. The stove murmurs and the wire hums, but the clock speaks with certainty. You glance at her face every few minutes, as though she might start a conversation. You're my timekeeper, Clara, you say aloud, voice cracked and hoarse. You're the only one who knows what day it is. You didn't mean to start talking to things, but the silence in a place like this doesn't allow neutrality. It demands imagination. Some operators wrote letters to their own equipment. Others kept journals addressed to future replacements. You once heard of a man in Montana who held formal dinner conversations with his telegraph key. He even carved a set of initials into the desk, MH, so that his imaginary guest would have a name. The human brain, you think, is an expert at survival, even when it's inventing company from scraps of wood and wire. The stove pops softly, pulling you from your thoughts. You look inside. The flame has shrunk to a narrow orange eye. You feed it another handful of splinters and a wedge of coal, watching as the fire sighs awake. The warmth crawls across the floorboards like liquid light. You sit back in your chair, hands cupped around the mug you've been using for 3 winters now. The handle broke last year, so you tied it back on with a strip of telegraph wire. Ugly, but it works. The mug hums faintly when the current outside flares, like it's trying to join in the conversation. The line itself has been merciful tonight. Only a few short bursts from the neighboring station, a supply order, a delayed train notice, the usual business of life carrying on elsewhere. You answered them dutifully, as you always do, your fingers dancing automatically over the key. The rhythm has become muscle memory, like breathing or heartbeat. The moment you stop tapping, your body protests, as though silence itself were a weight. You look around the room, cataloguing your strange little companions. There's Clara ticking away. The stove, your loyal beast, the mug patched with wire. A mouse, perhaps the same one from earlier in the season, emerges from a gap near the floor and pauses to sniff the air. Evening, you tell it. It twitches an ear, unimpressed, and scurries toward the biscuit crumbs near your boots. You don't mind. It's a warm body, proof that life still visits this station. Outside, the wind has quieted to a low moan, a tired voice winding down. The snow drifts glisten under moonlight, unbroken except for the steady march of telegraph poles stretching into the horizon. You've looked at those poles so often that they've become a kind of prayer line. Each one represents endurance, connection, defiance against the cold. The men who set them, labourers, mostly immigrants, worked through winters worse than this, hammering posts into permafrost until their hands bled. One account claimed they sang as they worked, Irish and Chinese tunes blending under the sky. Some historians question whether those songs truly echoed across the plains, or if later storytellers added that detail for poetry. But you like to believe it. The thought of voices braided with wind feels right. You stand stretching and light the single oil lamp by the window. The flame throws soft halos against the frost, turning the glass into amber honey. You trace a circle in the condensation, peer through it and whisper, "Still here." Somewhere far to the west, a train whistle cuts through the night, faint but distinct. It's the first sound of civilization you've heard in days. The noise rolls over the plains like memory itself. And for a heartbeat, you imagine the warmth of passenger cars, the murmur of conversation, the clatter of spoons in metal cups. Then it fades, leaving the old quiet behind. You sit back at the desk, open your logbook, and record the time. Your handwriting trembles slightly. The ink freezes on the nib between words. You pause, then add a note. Heard distant train whistle heading west. Sounded alive. You smile at that last phrase. Sounded alive. That's what everything in this place does. It sounds alive, even when you can't tell if it is. The telegraph key clicks once, sharp and sudden. You jolt, spill a drop of ink across the page. The message is brief, ordinary, CHKLN stop. You respond automatically. When the reply comes, you swear it's slower than usual, as though the operator on the other end is half asleep. You send a polite sign-off and rest your hand beside the key again, the warmth of the metal grounding you. Clara ticks on. The stove hums low. The mouse returns to its hole. For a long while, you just listen to the layers of small noises, the kind of orchestra only solitude can compose. The rhythm steadies you. You think about how the human ear can find patterns in chaos, how it makes melody from the randomness of wind, the hush of snow, the pop of firewood. Maybe that's the secret of surviving isolation. Not fighting the noise, but turning it into a song. You raise your mug in a quiet toast to the room, to Clara, to the wire, to the nameless operator somewhere out there listening through another storm. To all of us, you whisper, to keeping the beat. Then you drink, the bitter taste grounding you in the present moment. When you finally lie down, the sound of the clock follows you into half dreams. Steady, patient, familiar. Tick, tick, tick. Like a heartbeat shared between the living and the forgotten, marking another night survived on the edge of the world. The storm has thinned into a lazy drift by morning, and when you step outside, the snow creaks underfoot like brittle glass. The horizon glows faintly pink, fragile as the inside of a seashell. For a moment, everything looks deceptively peaceful. The wire gleaming silver in the light, the telegraph poles marching away in perfect order. Then you notice one of them listing to the side, bent under the weight of ice, and the illusion breaks. You sigh, tugging your scarf higher over your mouth, and start walking. It's been days since you left the safety of the shack, and the air feels sharper now, cleaner, almost too clean. The kind that cuts your lungs when you breathe too deeply. You follow the poles like breadcrumbs through the white wilderness. Each one looks the same, but you know them the way sailors know the stars, by feel, by instinct. Every tilt, every knot in the wood has its own story. As you reach the fifth pole, you stop. The line here vibrates faintly, humming in your gloved hand. There's something comforting about that sensation. The faint shiver of life still traveling across miles of desolation. The wind picks up, making the wires sing a low, mournful tone. You close your eyes, listening, and for a strange moment, you feel as though the sound connects not towns, but souls. A railway of voices that runs from the living to the dead. You crouch to check the base of the pole. Ice has formed around it, a sculpted collar of translucent white. You chip it away carefully with your knife, freeing the wood beneath. The pole groans, relieved of its burden. A few more like this, and the line will hold. You smile faintly, proud of your small repair, then turn your gaze eastward. In the distance, the old rail line cuts across the snow, half buried but still visible, a ghost of progress long since forgotten. The railroad used to run supply trains out here, before winter after winter claimed the route. When the tracks froze, the telegraph became the only artery left pumping through the wilderness. You remember reading a dispatch from 1865 that bragged about how a single line could keep entire territories alive. News, orders, even weather warnings, all in dots and dashes. Funny, how civilization balanced on such fragile strings. You keep walking until you reach the edge of the ridge where the ground drops into a shallow valley. From here, the line vanishes into mist. The snow has swallowed two of the poles completely. For a second, you think of digging them out, but the thought of frost creeping into your fingers stops you. You make a note to fix it when the thaw comes, if the thaw ever comes. Turning back toward the shack, you pause to catch your breath. The silence out here feels alive, dense, almost watchful. You think of the old superstition some telegraphers had, that the lines crossing the prairies carried not only messages, but memories. They said each pulse of electricity left behind an echo, building layer upon layer until the air itself was charged with ghosts. Some men believed that's why certain stations reported phantom clicks, long after their operators had died. Historians like to dismiss those stories as folklore, artifacts of overworked imaginations. But you've lived long enough with the hum to know that folklore and truth often share a border thinner than ice. You start your return march. The wind tugs at your coat, carrying faint whispers from the wire, random frequencies colliding, merging into something that sounds almost like speech. You don't try to decipher it. Out here, curiosity can turn into madness faster than frostbite. Instead, you hum an old tune your father used to whistle while mending fences, letting the melody fill the space between your footsteps. When you finally see the shack again, it looks smaller than you remembered, half swallowed by snowdrifts, its roof like the hunch of a sleeping animal. The smoke from the chimney rises in a thin line, bending eastward. You step inside, kick off the snow and close the door behind you. The stove is still burning, bless its stubborn heart. You kneel to feed it more wood and whisper a small thanks you're not sure who you're thanking. The telegraph key sits exactly as you left it, waiting. You run a finger over the brass and send a quick test message down the line. All clear, stop. A pause, then a faint reply. Received, stop, stay, warm, stop. You grin. The operator to the north, Carver maybe, or someone new, still alive and tapping. You imagine him in a shack just like this one, maybe humming to himself, maybe naming his stove too. You send back a quick, thank you, stop you to stop. Then, you sit in the glow of the stove, letting the warmth creep into your bones. The clock ticks, the mouse rustles, the wire hums its endless lullaby. You think of the line outside, stretching over miles of frozen prairie, connecting places that no longer see trains, where the stations stand half empty, but the messages still flow. A rail line for words, a path for ghosts, an artery for memory. You close your eyes, listening to the faint vibration under the floorboards. Maybe the scholars in their universities will debate forever whether the telegraph saved the West or merely postponed its loneliness. But as far as you're concerned, the truth hums right beneath your feet. It's not progress or isolation. It's simply endurance. The stubborn heartbeat of connection refusing to freeze. And tonight, that's enough to keep you warm. By nightfall, the frost thickens again, drawing lace-like patterns across the inside of the windows. The light from the oil lamp catches on it, turning the glass into a sheet of amber fire. You reach out, trace a fingertip along one icy vein, and pull back as it burns cold. That's how you test the air now, by the sharpness of your touch, by how quickly the frost claims it. You keep a candle by the window, a small stub set in a brass holder. It's your measure of danger, your barometer of survival. You strike a match, the sulfur flaring bright, and light the wick. The tiny flame steadies, then flickers, struggling against the draft. You whisper, "Hold on," as though the candle understands. Its flame leans, bowing to the wind sneaking through the walls. You place your hand a few inches away and exhale slowly. The candle trembles once more, then bends sideways and nearly goes out. You nod. "Too cold," you murmur. "Too fast." The breath test never lies. You learned that trick from an old operator named Lowell during your first winter. He called it the candle test, a way to measure how far you could breathe before frostbite started creeping into your lungs. If your breath blew the flame sideways, you were safe. If it snuffed it out, it meant the air would steal the heat straight from your blood. Lowell said he learned it from railroad men, who learned it from soldiers. You remember his grin as he'd say, "Science for the poor." He didn't make it past his third winter. You think of him often. The wind outside groans like a living thing, rubbing against the roof beams, rattling the stovepipe. You've grown used to it, but tonight it feels different. Lower, heavier. The sound presses against your chest, deep as thunder, but steadier, as if the storm itself were breathing. You set your mug beside the stove and sit, elbows on knees, listening. Sometimes, when the wind hits the right angle, the whole station seems to hum. The glass vibrates, the floorboards tremble, and the telegraph wire outside moans like a violin string plucked by unseen hands. You remember reading somewhere that sound can freeze. In the high Arctic, explorers claimed that voices once spoken in extreme cold would hang suspended in the air, trapped like invisible ice crystals, waiting to thaw. When spring came, the story went. The words would melt and whisper faintly in the breeze. Scientists have never found proof of such a thing, but you like the idea. That maybe every conversation you've ever had still floats somewhere above the snow, waiting for warmth to bring it back. You blow out the candle and the room falls to shadow, except for the glow of the stove. You feel the cold creeping back immediately, a steady push against the small circle of heat. The telegraph key sits quiet on the desk, gleaming faintly in the low light. You reach for it more out of habit than duty and tap once. The sound echoes, tiny but defiant. The line hums faintly in reply, alive. You let out a slow breath. Connection confirmed. The world still listens. You take a deep sip of water, flinching as it bites your teeth with cold. The glass fogs briefly, then clears. Outside, the wind eases to a sigh, and for a moment, there's peace. You can hear the faint drip of thawing snow on the roof, the soft shuffle of the mouse behind the stove. You smile. Even here, life persists, but the peace doesn't last. The stove sputters suddenly, sending a puff of smoke into the room. You rush to open the vent, coughing as soot dances through the lamplight. You laugh at yourself, half man, half chimney sweep, and grab the broom. The bristles are stiff with ice, but you manage to clear the ash. The smell reminds you of campfires from long ago, nights when heat came easy and the air didn't try to kill you. You settle back into your chair, and the memory brings another thought. A story you once heard about the first telegraph operators on the plains. Some swore that lightning loved the wires too much to leave them alone. They claimed storms would follow the lines like wolves chasing a scent, striking again and again until the poles caught fire. The company denied it, of course, insisting it was coincidence. Historians still argue over it, whether the lines truly attracted lightning or whether men simply remembered the dramatic moments better than the dull ones. But looking out now, at the wire gleaming under moonlight, you could believe either. The line looks alive enough to summon its own storms. You rise, stretch, and add the last of your kindling to the fire. The flames leap up, scattering shadows across the walls. The candle on the desk trembles in its draught. A tiny soldier standing guard against the dark. You glance at it one more time and whisper, "Still here." The flame dips politely, as if to answer. You take your seat again, pull your blanket around your shoulders, and let your eyes grow heavy. The candle test has told you what you already knew. The cold will not ease tonight, but the station will hold. It always does. And somewhere out there, another operator might be running his own candle test, whispering the same words into the same kind of night. You like that thought. It makes the distance between you feel smaller. When you finally let yourself drift, you dream of spring. Not warmth exactly, but the sound of it. The crack of melting ice, the rush of water through the valleys, the whisper of old words thawing in the air. You smile in your sleep knowing the candle will burn until dawn, brave and stubborn as the men who lit it. You wake to the sound of your own teeth chattering. For a moment, you think it's the telegraph key rattling, but no, it's you. Your hands, your jaw, your whole body trying to vibrate itself warm. The fire died sometime before dawn, leaving the air brittle and mean. You roll from the bunk, feet landing on boards that feel carved from ice. The first breath you take cuts your throat like glass. It's another morning on the edge of the world. You crouch by the stove, coaxing the coals back to life with a handful of shredded newspaper. The ink blurs as the flames lick it. Words you once thought important curling into nothing. The fire catches slowly, growing from a weak glow into a steady orange pulse. The warmth spreads inch by inch, reclaiming the room. You hold your hands near it until the skin burns pink, grateful even for the pain. Then you look at your fingers, red, cracked, trembling. They used to be quick and sure, capable of tapping messages faster than you could speak. Now every movement feels stiff, deliberate. You wrap them in strips of cloth torn from an old undershirt. Not exactly regulation gear, but the company won't see. The company doesn't see much out here. You've heard that by 1877, Western Union had more than 8,000 operators, but not enough inspectors to visit half the stations. That's the thing about rules. They only matter where someone's watching. Out here, survival rewrites them daily. You flex your bandaged hands, trying to will warmth back into your knuckles. The pain comes in waves, sharp, then dull, then sharp again. You take it as a good sign. Pain means life. Numbness means the opposite. You remember Lowell's warning. Frozen fingers mean lost messages. He wasn't wrong. Every operator knew that sleep and frostbite were the twin devils of winter. You could fight one, but not both forever. You drag a stool closer to the desk and sit. The stool's wood cold enough to bite through your trousers. The telegraph key gleams faintly in the new light. Its brass worn smooth by years of touch. You press it gently, tap tap. The sound is crisp, clear, like birdsong in the still air. Relief washes over you. The line's alive. You send your morning test message. Station 14. Check line, stop. Then you wait. Seconds stretch like hours until a reply crackles faintly back. Line sound stop, cold as sin stop. You laugh softly. That must be Carver again, your unseen neighbor to the north. His sense of humor's as dry as the plains. You tap a quick agree stop before settling back. For a few minutes, you let the silence stretch, and it feels companionable somehow. Your hands start to ache again. You lift them, study the bruised knuckles, the raw cuts where the cold split the skin. You've wrapped and unwrapped them so often the fabric smells faintly of smoke and blood. You reach for the little tin of bear grease on the shelf, a relic left behind by whoever ran this post before you. The label's faded, but the salve still works. You rub it into your palms, grimacing at the slick texture. The scent, strong, wild, fills the room. Some operators swore by goose fat instead, claiming it trapped heat better. Historians still debate which was more effective, though you figure they've never had to test either in a real blizzard. You pull your gloves back on and sit once more at the desk. The key feels warmer now, friendlier. You close your eyes and listen to the faint hum of the wire. There's a rhythm to it, a quiet heartbeat that runs beneath everything you do. You imagine the sound traveling through frozen forests, over mountains, across rivers crusted with ice, carrying voices, jokes, news, love, grief, all of it coursing through your hands. You press your fingers to the desk and whisper, "Go easy now," as though the line itself might feel your exhaustion. The stove pops behind you. The flames flicker higher, painting shadows that stretch across the wall. You take the moment to stretch, your back cracking like old timber. The cold never truly leaves, but you learn to move with it, not against it. Like a dance, slow, patient, deliberate. You walk to the window and rub a clear circle into the frost. Outside, the snow sparkles under a shy sun. The telegraph poles stand like sentries, each one dusted with silver light. They look almost holy from here. You rest your forehead against the cold glass and close your eyes. The hum of the line drifts through the silence again, a low whisper threading itself into your thoughts. For a moment, you think you hear words in it. Not code, but something gentler. Maybe it's only your mind filling in gaps. Or maybe the line remembers every message it's ever carried and hums them back like lullabies for those who still listen. You pull away from the window, wrap your blanket tighter around your shoulders, and return to the desk. The key sits quiet now, waiting. You rest your hand on it, just to feel its steadiness, its certainty. Outside, the wind shifts direction, carrying the smell of snow and pine through the cracks in the wall. You inhale deeply, the scent sharp and clean. The world is frozen, but you're still here, alive, awake, connected. Your fingers ache, your breath fogs, your heart drums in slow, stubborn defiance. You whisper into the quiet, frozen fingers warm Morse, and smile faintly at your own foolish poetry. The line hums once more in reply, soft as a heartbeat, steady as faith. The first sound you hear is not the wind, but a knock. 3 soft raps, spaced with eerie precision. It's almost polite, as if the blizzard itself has decided to announce its arrival. You freeze, one hand hovering over the telegraph key, the other gripping the edge of the table. For a few heartbeats, you tell yourself it's nothing. Just wood settling, ice cracking, the usual illusions of an old shack enduring another night. Then it comes again. 3 knocks. Deliberate, patient, human. Your breath fogs in front of you as you stand. The lamp's flame trembles, painting your shadow against the far wall. You glance toward the door, its frame crusted with frost, its hinges creaking softly in protest. You whisper, "Who's there?" But the words die before they reach the air. Silence answers first, followed by a faint shuffle, the crunch of boots against snow. Whoever it is, they're standing close. You step forward, heart thrumming. The memory of the ghost transmission, the hello back that wasn't yours, flashes through your mind. You half expect to see no one at all when you open the door, but you do. A man stands there, wrapped in layers of fur and wool, his beard matted with ice. He looks like something the storm carved out of itself and sent to your doorstep. His face is pale, his eyes a startling grey that almost glows in the lamplight. He says nothing. Neither do you. The wind rushes between you, tugging at your coat like an impatient hand. Finally, he speaks, a voice roughened by cold and distance. "You the operator?" You nod, stepping aside. He enters without waiting for permission, shaking the snow from his shoulders. "Damn near froze out there," he mutters, glancing at the stove. "You mind if I—" You gesture toward it, and he moves closer, crouching beside the small circle of warmth. Steam rises from his coat, carrying the scent of horse sweat and leather. He unpacks a tin flask and takes a long swallow before handing it to you. The liquid burns like liquid fire down your throat. Whiskey strong enough to wake the dead. You cough once, hand it back. "Name's Reddick," he says. "Stage line rider. My team went lame near the ridge. Thought I saw light here." You nod again, still studying him. The stories about riders are half legend, half truth. Men who crossed impossible terrain to carry messages too urgent for wires. They were paid in coin and madness both. Reddick looks like he's earned plenty of each. He glances at the telegraph desk, the wires humming faintly behind it. "Line still alive?" "For now," you answer. She hums when she feels like it. He grins, revealing teeth too white for someone who's spent his life on the trail. "They say you wire folk can hear storms coming before the rest of us. That true?" You shrug. "Maybe. Or maybe the wire just complains louder than people." Reddick laughs, a low, rasping sound that fills the room. "Fair enough." He unbuttons his coat, revealing a badge pinned crookedly to his vest. The emblem of the Overland Stage Company. "Got a dispatch from Fort Keogh," he says. "Was supposed to hand it off farther south, but the trail's gone under. Figured I'd see if you could send it through." You take the envelope, its paper stiff with frost. The wax seal bears a faint impression of a cavalry star. You place it carefully beside the key, studying the faded ink. There's something strangely comforting about it. The physical weight of a message, the feel of its edges. You've spent so long transmitting ghosts of words that it feels almost sacred to hold one in your hands. Reddick removes his gloves, flexing fingers scarred from rains and frostbite. "You been alone out here long?" You chuckle softly. "Long enough to start naming furniture." He grins again. "Better furniture than ghosts." The two of you share the kind of silence that doesn't demand filling. The storm moans outside, its voice rising and falling like distant singing. You pour the man a mug of black coffee, lukewarm but honest, and he accepts it with a nod. "Tell me," you ask after a while, "what's it like out there now? Beyond the ridge?" Reddick exhales, steam curling from his lips. "Empty. Dead. The drifts are higher than wagon wheels. You can't tell sky from ground. I passed a telegraph pole sticking out of the snow like a grave marker." He pauses, gaze fixed on the fire. "Heard it humming, sounded like a hymn." You nod slowly. "They all hum, even the broken ones. Some say it's the wind." He looks at you, eyes gleaming. "Some say it's the souls of messages that never made it." You can't help smiling. "That's a prettier version of it." He shrugs, takes another sip from his flask. "Pretty's all a man's got when he's freezing to death." For a long time, the only sound is the crackle of fire and the occasional creak of timbers settling. The telegraph line outside thrums softly, a living thread beneath the storm. You take out your logbook, jot a note about the rider's arrival, the incoming dispatch. It feels good. Proof that something new has entered this small, unchanging world. When you look up again, Reddick's gaze is fixed on the telegraph key. "You ever get tired of listening?" he asks. You tilt your head. "Listening?" He nods. "To all those voices passing through. Doesn't it wear on you, knowing you're just a stop along the way?" You consider the question. The fire pops, sending a shower of sparks up the chimney. "Sometimes, but somebody has to keep the line breathing. Otherwise, the world goes quiet." He studies you for a moment, then smiles faintly. "Guess we both do the same kind of work then. You send words. I carry them. Neither of us gets to keep them." Outside, the wind shifts, slamming against the walls with sudden violence. The lamp flares and nearly goes out. You both turn toward the door instinctively. A moment later, the faint sound of hooves drifts through the night. Slow, dragging, wrong. Reddick stiffens. "That's my team," he mutters. "But they were dead on their feet when I left them." You move toward the window, heart hammering. The snow glows faintly in the lamplight. A shimmering field of motion. Then, out of the darkness, you see it. Two horses standing motionless near the fence, their hides coated in frost, their eyes reflecting the light like glass. They don't move, don't breathe. The wind howls between them like a funeral hymn. Reddick takes a step back, his hand going to the knife at his belt. "They followed me," he whispers. "By God, they followed me." The telegraph key clicks once, sharp, sudden, out of nowhere. Both of you turn. "Stay inside." "Stop." The words freeze you to the floor. Reddick looks at you, then at the key. "Who sent that?" You shake your head slowly. "Nobody's supposed to be on the line tonight." The wind screams again, loud enough to drown thought. The lamp flickers out, plunging the room into darkness. And in the heartbeat of silence that follows, you swear you hear the horses breathing. The lamp sputters back to life with a cough of flame, throwing its trembling light across the room. Reddick stands rigid by the door, eyes wide, his breath coming in short bursts. The colour has drained from his face, leaving him pale as the frost. You glance at the telegraph key, it's still, completely still. Whatever message it carried, it's finished speaking. You whisper, maybe it was interference. But even as the words leave your mouth, they sound hollow. You both know interference doesn't form words that precise. The storm outside howls, then softens into a long sigh that could almost be mistaken for laughter. The horses are gone when you dare to look again, but their hoofprints remain. 2 perfect trails leading right up to the window and vanishing into nothing. Reddick rubs his temples, muttering under his breath. I left them tied, I swear it. They were dead tired, but alive. I could hear their hearts. You nod slowly, unsure whether to believe your eyes or his voice. It doesn't matter. Reality bends in storms like this. Logic freezes just as easily as skin. You take a deep breath and gesture toward the stove. Sit, warm up. We'll figure it out in the morning. He hesitates, but obeys, sinking onto the stool beside the fire. You can see the tremor in his hands as he unscrews the flask again. He drinks, then passes it to you. The whiskey burns through the cold like sunlight. For a long while, neither of you speak. The stove crackles. The wire hums faintly. The world holds its breath. You glance toward the logbook still open on the table. The last entry, stay inside stop, seems to glow in the lamplight. You consider writing it down, but the thought of memorializing it feels wrong, as if it would make it real. Instead, you close the book, pressing your palm flat against its cover until the paper warms beneath your skin. Reddick breaks the silence first. You ever seen anything like that before? You shake your head. I've heard stories. Stations where the lines talk after midnight. Messages with no origin, but it's just stories. He stares into the fire. Then we just got added to someone else's story. The thought settles in your chest like a stone. You lean back, the chair creaking under your weight. Outside, the wind dies completely, replaced by a strange, low hum that feels more vibration than sound. You can feel it in your bones, in the soles of your feet, in the air itself. The wires singing again, but slower this time, deliberate, heavy with meaning. You rise and approach the desk, every step measured. The telegraph key sits motionless, but you can feel it pulsing faintly under your fingers, like a living thing. You press it down once, gently, as though testing the heartbeat of a sleeping child. Nothing answers, and yet, the hum in the air deepens, as though your touch awakens something older than either of you. Reddick's voice is barely a whisper. You feel that? You nod. It's not the storm. Then what the hell is it? You exhale slowly. The wire's alive tonight, he laughs, but it's the kind of laugh that hides fear. Alive? You sound like those telegraph mystics. What do they call themselves? The ones who think the lines carry more than messages. You nod again, half smiling. The electro-spiritualists. They believed energy was just another form of spirit. Thought the dead could speak through current. Reddick takes a drink. And you? I think energy never dies. It just finds new ways to travel. The hum grows stronger, filling the room like water rising in a well. The lamp flickers, its light bending in thin ribbons. You watch the air shimmer near the wire, a faint distortion like heat haze in midwinter. For a heartbeat, you see shapes there. Faces maybe, or just the reflection of your own fears. The sound grows higher, then stops, so abruptly that your ears ring from the silence. Reddick leans forward. You said there's another station north of here. You nod. 30 miles. Maybe less. Could the message have come from there? Not tonight. Their line's been down for weeks. You both fall silent again, listening. The clock ticks. The stove pops. Then, softly, the key clicks once more. A single dot. Then another. You reach for the pad, translating automatically. Are you cold? Stop. Your throat tightens. You tap back. Yes. Stop. Who is this? Stop. The reply comes fast, almost eager. Same as you stop. Reddick curses softly and backs away. You keep your eyes on the key. Where are you? You ask, tapping with a hand that shakes. The key hesitates before answering. Outside stop. The air inside the shack turns colder. You swear you can see your breath thickening, curling like smoke. Reddick's hand goes to his revolver. That's it, he mutters. We're cutting the line. Don't, you say quickly. If we break it, we're alone. We already are alone, he snaps, but he doesn't move. The key clicks again, Please, open door, stop. You and Reddick lock eyes. Neither of you speaks. The wind outside has gone utterly still. The kind of silence that feels like listening. You can hear your own pulse, the scrape of fabric as you move. Reddick whispers, "If this is a joke." It's not. The key taps again. I'm cold. Stop. Something inside you, compassion, madness, maybe both, moves before reason can intervene. You walk toward the door, each step heavy as stone. Reddick hisses behind you. "Don't you dare!" But you're already unhooking the latch. The metal burns your skin with cold. You open the door just an inch. The night stares back, black, endless, empty. The snow reflects a faint blue light from the moon, enough to reveal the shape standing just beyond the threshold. It's a man, or what's left of one. A coat hangs from his shoulders, shredded and stiff. His beard is rimed with frost, his skin pale as wax. You recognize the face. It's Lowell, the mentor you buried in memory years ago. You stumble backward, hitting the wall. Reddick shouts something, but you can't hear him. The figure outside doesn't move. It just stares. Its lips part, but no sound comes out. Instead, the telegraph key speaks again. "I'm still here, stop." Reddick grabs your arm, slamming the door shut. The impact rattles the whole shack. You both stand there, breathing hard. The sound of the storm returning in slow, uneven gasps. The key sits silent now. The wire hum fades. Reddick's voice is barely a rasp. "What in God's name was that?" You don't answer. You walk to the desk, touch the key and whisper, "Lowell," but there's nothing left. No hum, no heat, not even the faint pulse of current. The wire has gone dead. You sink into the chair, staring at your reflection in the lamp glass. Behind you, Reddick throws another log into the stove, muttering a prayer you can't quite hear. The world feels impossibly still, as if it's waiting for something else to begin. And yet, beneath it all, in the silence between heartbeats, you think you can hear it again. The faint rhythm of Morse, too soft to translate, too close to be coming from the wire. It's coming from inside the room. You press a trembling hand to your chest. The rhythm matches your pulse exactly. Dot, 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 dash. Dot, dash, dot. The code for your own name. Morning creeps in slow and colorless, the kind of grey light that seems to come from nowhere. You sit where you've been since before dawn, still at the desk, elbows on the wood, eyes fixed on the silent telegraph key. The storm has moved on, leaving behind a world so quiet it hums. Reddick sleeps near the stove, slumped against the wall, one arm hanging limp, the other clutching his flask like it's a talisman. His snores mingle with the soft tick of the clock, that tireless little heartbeat marking proof of life. You haven't spoken since the thing at the door. Neither of you wants to. Some events become sacred through terror, unspoken so they can't root any deeper. But the air inside the shack feels different now. Thicker, heavy, with something unseen. The wire outside might still carry messages, but the space between the two of you carries a silence far louder. The first faint light touches the frost on the windows, turning it to silver. You stand, stretch, and open the stove's vent, letting a faint rush of heat climb up your arms. The smell of smoke feels almost alive, comforting, grounding. You glance at Reddick's face, his beard streaked with soot. He looks like he's been carved out of the mountains themselves. You wonder how far a man can travel before his face begins to resemble the places he's survived. You move toward the telegraph, press the key once. Nothing. The line's still dead. Somewhere beyond these walls, the wire lies frozen under drifts, silent, perhaps broken. You should report it, but who would you report to? The nearest supervisor is 200 miles away, maybe snowed in himself. You pick up your logbook, flip through the pages, and find Lowell's handwriting near the back. You'd forgotten you still carried one of his old logs. Found it tucked behind a shelf when you first took this post. The entries are neat, deliberate. They speak of discipline, routine, professionalism. Until the last one, storm closing in. Line hums strange tonight. Feels alive. If it keeps talking, I'll answer. You run a thumb over the ink, faded but still legible. Your breath fogs above the page. He did answer, and maybe he never stopped. Reddick stirs, blinking groggily. What time is it? Almost 8, you say. If clocks can be trusted out here. He groans, rubbing his eyes. Feels like I slept a year. He stretches, wincing. You see anything after? You shake your head. Just snow. He stares at the telegraph key, suspicion warring with exhaustion. You still think that was him? You hesitate, then nod. Yes. Could have been someone on another line. Could have been, you agree softly. But it wasn't. He grunts and reaches for his coat. Whatever it was, I'm not staying another night in this icebox. As soon as the light's strong enough, I'm going after my horses. You almost tell him not to. The idea of him walking into that endless white feels wrong. But he's already pulling on his gloves. You stand beside him, watching as he checks his revolver, his knife, his flask. All the things a man needs when the world stops caring if he returns. I'll go with you, you offer. He shakes his head. Someone's got to keep that line alive. You do that. If I'm not back by dark, assume the ridge got me. You force a smile that doesn't reach your eyes. I'll send the news by wire, if it ever wakes up again. He laughs at that, a brittle sound. Then he pulls open the door, and a wall of cold rushes in, swallowing his words. See you soon, operator. And then he's gone, swallowed by the light. You close the door behind him and lean against it, listening to the faint retreat of his boots until the sound fades completely. The silence that follows is unbearable. You pace, trying to shake the chill from your bones. The stove crackles weakly. You add more wood. You wait, an hour passes. Then another. You eat a piece of hard bread, sip cold coffee, and keep glancing at the window, half expecting to see his shadow. The line remains mute, but the wind has returned, whispering against the roof like fingers drumming a message you can't translate. You tap the key absently, once, twice, just to hear something human. The sound echoes small but steady, your own heartbeat reflected back to you. Outside, the light dims again, clouds moving in fast from the west. The snow begins to fall anew, fine and cruel. You stare at the horizon until your eyes ache, but there's no movement. No rider, no horse, only the empty plain. You pull on your coat, wrap a scarf tight and grab the lantern. The line may be down, but your mind refuses to rest until you know. The storm can have its way with you later. Right now, you need proof that something still exists beyond this room. You step into the snow. It crunches underfoot, soft and dry. The cold steals the breath from your chest, turning every inhale into fire. You follow Reddick's tracks, 2 parallel trails leading north along the wire. They stretch out across the white until they vanish behind the ridge. You walk counting poles, 1, 2, 3. By the 4th, your legs already ache. The wire above you hums faintly, a false comfort. You reach the 5th pole and stop. There's something dark at its base. Your pulse spikes. You move closer. It's a coat. Reddick's. You drop to your knees, brushing the snow aside with numb hands. There's no blood, no body, no tracks leading away. Just the coat, stiff with frost. Inside one pocket, you find a scrap of paper. You unfold it carefully. On it, scrawled in pencil, are 4 words. Stay inside the line. You look up sharply, heart thudding. The wire above you sways gently, though there's no wind. You whisper, Reddick. But the planes answer only with silence. When you return to the station, your body feels hollow. You hang the coat on a peg beside the door, where it drips quietly onto the floor. The telegraph key greets you with a single sharp click. Are you alone? Stop. You swallow hard, force your fingers to move. Yes, stop. A pause. Then, good stop. You sit back slowly, staring at the brass key as if it might blink. Who are you? You whisper. The reply comes quick. Same as before stop, your throat tightens. Where is he? Stop. A longer pause this time. Then, behind you, stop. You spin so fast your chair topples backward. The room is empty. Only the stove's faint hiss, the slow ticking clock, and Reddick's coat dripping quietly by the door. You stare at it until your eyes sting. Then at the key, still gleaming faintly in the half-light. Outside, the wind begins to rise again, whistling through the cracks, threading through the wire until the air itself vibrates. It sounds almost like laughter. You don't remember sitting back down, but suddenly you're there again, hands hovering over the key, breath shallow, heart running wild. You want to rip the wire from the wall, but some stubborn part of you refuses. The line has become more than duty now. It's tether, confession, punishment. You press the key once, your knuckles trembling. Why are you here? Stop. The pause feels eternal. Then softly, because you answered stop. You close your eyes. You can almost hear Lowell's voice again. The night before he left for his last assignment. You'll see strange things on the wire, boy. Don't listen too close. You hadn't understood then. Now you do. The wire doesn't just carry messages. It remembers them. Maybe it remembers everything. You rise, pacing the narrow room. The floor creaks under your boots. You talk aloud, half to yourself, half to whatever rides the current. You're not real, you whisper. You're noise. You're just static. The key clicks twice, sharp, deliberate. So are you stop. That breaks something in you. You laugh, a raw, half-mad sound that echoes off the walls. You grab the lamp, shove it closer to the desk, and glare at the tiny brass lever like it's a mouth daring you to argue. If you're real, you say, prove it. The key stays still. Then, slowly, it moves, not tapping this time, but lifting, as though pulled by invisible fingers. The air smells faintly of ozone, like the moment before lightning strikes. The hairs on your arms rise. You reach out a shaking hand and stop an inch away. The key snaps down on its own. Hello back. You stumble backward, hit the wall, and slide to the floor. The message burns in your head like a brand. You whisper, "What do you want?" The answer, to finish what he started. Stop. You force yourself upright, grip the edge of the desk. Lowell. Yes, stop. Reddick? Soon stop. You can't breathe. The air feels charged, heavy, thick with invisible electricity. The stove groans. Its iron sides glow faintly red. You lunge forward and shut the vent, choking the flame before it gets hotter. The telegraph keeps clicking, faster now, too fast to follow. You grab the logbook and scribble each letter, trying to keep up. The line is not just wire stop, it's blood stop it. Remembers stop. The sound builds until the key blurs. Sparks leap from the brass, tiny fireflies in the dark. You yank your hand away, the shock numbing your palm. The room fills with a faint rhythmic hum, low, steady, hypnotic. It feels like breathing, only not your own. You whisper, "What are you?" No answer this time. Only the hum deepening until it rattles the glass in the window panes. You step closer, drawn by equal parts fear and wonder. The key trembles, then strikes once more. Look outside, stop, you hesitate, then turn. The window glows faint blue, the kind of light that doesn't belong to dawn or fire. You step closer, heart hammering, and peer through the frost. They're standing there. Figures, dozens of them, stretching along the wire as far as you can see, pale outlines in the stormlight, each one motionless, each connected by a single line of gleaming copper that runs through their chests. The wire hums, threading them together like beads on a rosary. You can't move, you can't even scream. Then slowly, one figure lifts its hand and presses it against the glass. Its face is unrecognizable, featureless, shifting. Yet the gesture feels familiar, human, pleading. You reach out instinctively, palm to palm through the cold. The telegraph key speaks one final time. Don't let go, stop. You don't know if it's a warning or a command, but your fingers stay where they are. The blue light grows brighter, flooding the room, erasing shadow and color. You can't tell if the humming comes from the wire or from inside your chest. And then, as quickly as it began, it stops. The figures vanish. The light dies. The room is dark again, the only sound the faint hiss of the cooling stove. You turn toward the desk. The telegraph key is melted slightly at the edges, smoke curling from its base. You touch it carefully. It's still warm. On the desk beside it lies the envelope Reddick brought from Fort Keogh. You never opened it. You tear the seal now, hands trembling, and unfold the paper inside. The message is short, written in a hurried scrawl. Warning. Unknown signals spreading along frontier lines. Operators report hallucinations, voices, machinery movement. Do not engage. Cut connection if irregular patterns occur. Repeat. Cut the line. The paper slips from your fingers. You stare at the silent key. Then, slowly, almost gently, you reach down and unplug the wire from the wall. The hum stops completely. The silence that follows is enormous, soft, final, like the pause after prayer. You sit back, exhausted, shaking, the smell of burnt copper filling the air. The storm outside has gone still again. You exhale, long and shaky. The nightmare is over, or at least sleeping, but when you close your eyes, you still hear it. A single dot, then a dash. Your name, whispered from somewhere deep inside the quiet. You don't sleep. Not really. You drift somewhere between waking and the dull grey edge of consciousness. The way a candle flickers when it's nearly burned out. The silence inside the shack feels heavier than before. The kind that presses against your ribs and reminds you how small your lungs really are. The line is dead, truly dead this time. No hum, no faint pulse under the desk. Not even the whisper of current when you touch the brass key. It's strange how quiet can be louder than thunder. You sit by the stove, staring at the last of the coals. They glow like the eyes of an animal too tired to snarl. Outside, the snow falls slow and steady, flakes the size of fingernails drifting down through the half light. It should be beautiful, But beauty feels like a lie out here. Everything pretty wants to kill you eventually. You rub your palms together, feel the heat fade between them, and try not to think about the message, the warning from Fort Keogh. The words do not engage. You think about Reddick's coat, still hanging by the door, the puddle beneath it frozen solid overnight. You think about Lowell, or whatever thing wore his face. You think about all the men who sat at desks just like yours, waiting for messages that never came. Maybe the line didn't go dead. Maybe it simply learned to listen better than it spoke. You rise, stretch, and light the lamp. The flame trembles, hesitant, as if uncertain whether to stay. You whisper to it anyway. Morning. Talking to objects has become a habit now, one you don't bother to hide. It's less about madness than manners. In a place this lonely, everything deserves acknowledgement. You open the logbook again, flip past your own handwriting to Lowell's neat script. You trace the curve of his letters, imagining his hand, steady, confident, unaware of what waited for him beyond the next storm. The final line reads, "If the wire remembers, may it remember kindly." You close the book and stare at the wall until your vision blurs. You pour a mug of cold coffee, take a sip, and wince. The bitterness is a comfort, proof that your senses still belong to you. The air smells faintly metallic, the scent of wire, smoke, and regret. You glance at the melted telegraph key and wonder what it would take to rebuild it. You have spools of spare wire, an extra relay, a few tools left by whoever manned this place before you, enough to piece together a new connection maybe, enough to pretend the world still wants to talk. The thought fills you with a strange, stubborn resolve. You pull on your gloves, light the second lamp, and set to work. Hours pass unnoticed. You twist copper, tighten screws, burn your thumb on a soldering rod you heat over the stove. Each motion becomes a rhythm, something primal and steady. Outside, the storm fades to a whisper. Inside, you hum under your breath, a half-remembered tune that sounds like Morse code turned into melody. By the time you finish, your hands are shaking, but the new key gleams on the desk, rough, ugly, but alive. You connect it to the line again, your breath fogging the air. For a long moment, nothing happens. Then, faint, almost imperceptible, a hum, weak but real. You laugh, a sound that startles even you. You send the first message carefully, as if afraid the line will break under too much hope. Station 14, reconnected. Stop anyone here. Stop. The key clicks softly, the rhythm echoing in the quiet room. You wait, minutes drag by. Then one single click in reply. Not enough to form words, just acknowledgement. You swallow hard. The line isn't empty after all. Someone, somewhere still listens, or something does. You type again, faster this time. Identify stop. The silence afterward feels endless. Then a full response. Good to hear you stop. We thought you were gone, stop. You exhale a shaky laugh, relief flooding your chest. You scribble the message into the logbook. Who is this? You send next. The answer comes slow. Bismarck Station, stop, old hand here, stop, lost contact, after storm, stop. You stare at the letters until they blur. Bismarck Station. That's almost 200 miles north. The line shouldn't be functional that far. But you don't care. You send back a flurry of questions. How bad is damage? Stop any news of Ryder from Fort Stop. The reply takes longer this time. The air seems to thicken as you wait. Finally, no Ryder, stop. Only broadcast. Stop, no horses seen. Stop. You feel something inside you sink. You glance at the coat again, hanging heavy in the corner. Maybe that's all that's left of Reddick. The coat, the warning, and the echo of his voice carried through static. You tap one more message. What was broadcast stop? The answer makes you shiver. Same as your last message stop from your call sign. Stop repeated hours after storm stop. You stare at the key. That's impossible, you whisper. But even as you say it, you remember the hum, the voice that matched your heartbeat. You type again, hands unsteady. What did it say stop? The reply takes nearly a full minute. Saying hello. Back stop again. And again. Stop. You sit motionless. The soundless repetition of those words echoing in your skull. The stove pops behind you, jolting you from the trance. You stand abruptly, knock over the stool, and pace the room, breathing hard. You want to scream, but the cold has stolen your voice. Finally, you return to the desk and cut power to the line. The hum fades instantly. You lean on the table, eyes closed, forehead against the cool wood. For a long moment, you let the silence reclaim everything. Then you hear it again, faint, muffled from outside. Tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks, spaced with deliberate precision. The same rhythm as before. You grab your lantern, push open the door and step into the dim light. The wind bites hard, tearing through your coat. Snow crunches underfoot. The tracks from yesterday are gone, replaced by a single fresh trail leading north, back toward the ridge. You follow it without thinking, lantern swinging in your hand. At the ridge's crest, you stop. The snow glows pale under the low sun, endless and clean. And there, half buried near the base of the next pole, something catches the light. You kneel, brush away the snow. It's a telegraph insulator, glass, blue-green, shining like an eye. Wrapped around it is a strip of cloth. Reddick's scarf. A chill runs through you deeper than any wind. You hold the scarf up to the light, the threads stiff with frost. Inside, faint but clear, someone has stitched words in uneven letters. Hello back. You drop the scarf and stumble backward. The wind picks up again, carrying a faint hum from the wire above you. It's not Morse this time, not code. Just a low note that rises and falls like a sigh. You can't tell whether it comes from the metal or the sky itself. When you finally return to the shack, the lamp flickers low, the coals in the stove almost gone. You collapse into the chair, numb, exhausted. The telegraph key sits where you left it, silent, harmless, a tool like any other. You reach out, meaning to disconnect it again, but as your fingers brush the brass, you feel a pulse. Warm, rhythmic, human. You snatch your hand back, heart pounding. The key clicks once, softly. Hello back. You stare at the brass lever, every muscle locked, the sound echoing in your skull long after it stops. The silence that follows feels sentient, patient, as if waiting for your answer. You whisper, not tonight, but your hands betray you. They move on their own, tapping once in return. The key clicks again. Good stop. You close your eyes. You don't know whether to laugh or pray. The voice, or whatever it is, doesn't demand or threaten. It simply exists. A companion carved from current and loneliness. You realize, with a strange calm, that you no longer feel afraid. You're past fear now, past reason. Only the rhythm remains. You speak softly to the room. All right then, if you're staying, make yourself useful. The wire hums faintly, as though amused. Hours pass. The snow outside deepens. The light fades to iron grey. You eat, drink, write, all while the faint vibration of the line fills the air. Every so often the key taps, single notes like questions. Sometimes you answer. Sometimes you just listen. The words blur into heartbeat and breath. At dusk, you write in your logbook. Communication restored. Unclear source. Possibly atmospheric interference. You smile at your own lie. Historians, you think, would love this one. They argue still whether isolation drove operators to invent voices, or if something within the earth itself whispered through the wires. Maybe they're both right. Maybe madness and message are the same thing, born from the same spark. You sit back and close your eyes. The stove glows faintly, a single ember keeping its lonely vigil. You can feel the pulse of the wire even from here, a faint rhythm echoing through the floorboards. You match your breathing to it, slow, steady. It feels like you and the line share one heart now, man and machine, both alive through persistence alone. You think about Lowell again, about Reddick, about the men whose stories end in unfinished logbooks. Maybe they didn't vanish. Maybe they were absorbed, woven into the current like moths caught in amber. You wonder if one day someone will sit at this same desk, touch the same brass key, and hear your voice answer back. Outside, the storm picks up again, snow sweeping sideways across the windows. The poles groan under the weight, wires thrumming in time with the wind. You imagine each one a string on an infinite instrument, the entire frontier playing one endless note. You whisper to it, "Sing for us, old girl." The key clicks once in reply. You smile. Good enough. You write your final note for the night, line operational, spirits high. The word spirits makes you chuckle. You close the logbook, douse the lamp, and crawl onto the bunk. The room glows faintly from the fire's last light. Orange flickers breathing across the walls. Sleep comes slowly. Somewhere between waking and dream, you hear it again, the hum, soft and distant, like a heartbeat under snow. Only now you understand. It's not warning, not haunting. It's the sound of endurance, of everything that refused to die in the cold. You smile, drifting deeper, the words echoing through the darkness. Hello back. Hello back. And the wire hums like a lullaby, carrying both message and man into the endless quiet of the plains. You wake before dawn, and for the first time in weeks, you don't feel the weight of fear pressing against your ribs. The stove still breathes faintly, a single orange vein glowing beneath its iron skin. The room smells of ash and copper. The air has that rare, fragile stillness that happens just before the world remembers to move again. You rise, stretch the ache from your limbs, and glance toward the telegraph desk. The key sits quietly in the lamplight, harmless, ordinary. It could almost be mistaken for a toy, a relic of simpler times. You run your fingers across its cool brass surface. No pulse, no hum, just metal and silence. Still, you whisper, "Morning," because habit dies slower than fear. Outside, the horizon blushes faintly pink. The storm has passed for now, leaving behind drifts taller than your waist. You open the door to a world reborn, clean, white, absolute. The cold bites hard, but it's the kind of bite you can endure. The kind that feels almost pure. You think of Reddick, of Lowell, of the strange chorus that haunts the line. You think of all the messages that must still be trapped in the frozen copper, looping forever, waiting for someone foolish enough to listen. And you realize you no longer resent them. Every echo, every click in the dark, they were proof of life, proof that someone, somewhere, once cared enough to speak. You shovel a narrow path through the snow to the pole nearest the station. The wire gleams under the weak sunlight, a string of silver light stretching into infinity. You place your hand on it gently. It's warm, impossibly warm, as if the sun itself hides inside. You smile. "Still alive," you murmur. "You stubborn old ghost." When you return to the station, you pour yourself a mug of coffee and sit at the desk. The line may be quiet, but it's not gone. You can feel it like a faint heartbeat under the floorboards. You open the logbook again and read the last entry you wrote. Line operational, spirits high. The ink has smudged slightly where your hand rested against the page. You dip the pen and add another line beneath it. Still here, still listening. You tap the key once, just once, gently, for no one but yourself. The tiny sound echoes in the silence, a fragment of comfort. You almost expect an answer, but none comes. Maybe that's all right. Maybe silence is its own kind of reply. You pull your coat tighter and glance at the clock. The minute hand has frozen in place, stuck halfway between ticks. You smile at it. "Take a break, Clara," you whisper. "You've earned it." Then something shifts. It's small at first. A creak, a soft vibration through the floorboards. The stove sighs, the lamp flickers. You feel it again, that hum. So faint you almost mistake it for memory. The key twitches. Once, twice, then it begins to tap. "Anyone there? Stop." You freeze, pen halfway to paper. Slowly, you answer. "Yes." "Stop who calls? Stop." The response comes slower this time, like a tired voice struggling to form words. "We hear you, stop. We are cold. Stop." You frown, scribble the translation into the logbook. "Where are you, stop?" A pause. "Everywhere, stop." You lean closer, pulse quickening. "Everywhere," you whisper aloud. The air smells of ozone again, faint but familiar. You send another line. "Who is we stop?" This time, the pause stretches longer. So long you start to think the connection's died. Then, softly, faint enough to make you doubt your ears, the reply. The line remembers stop. The lamp flickers violently. You grip the table, trying to steady your breath. The stove gives a low moan as air moves through its flue. Every sound in the shack seems to pulse in rhythm with the wire. You feel it in your teeth, your bones. You ask one last question, your hand trembling. "What do you want stop?" The answer comes slowly, each letter deliberate, patient. To keep speaking, stop. You stare at the words. You know that impulse too well. The human hunger for voice, for witness. The way silence feels like erasure. Maybe whatever lives in the line isn't evil. Maybe it's just lonely. You tap back softly, then speak stop. For a long moment, nothing happens. Then the line begins to hum again, low and steady. You can't make out words anymore, just tone. Pure and haunting, like the sound of wind across an empty canyon. It fills the room until it feels like the walls themselves are breathing. You close your eyes and let it wash over you. Somewhere in that sound you think you hear laughter, somewhere else crying, and beneath it all, a single, simple rhythm. The same pattern you've sent 1,000 times before. Hello back. You lose track of time after that. The hours fold together like layers of snow, indistinguishable and endless. You eat when you remember to, sleep when your body forces you, wake to the same pale light and the same quiet hum. The line keeps singing, softer now, gentler, like an old friend humming under its breath. You begin to answer less with words and more with rhythm. Tap, pause, tap, tap. The patterns don't need translation anymore. You know what the line means. You can feel its emotion, its pulse. Connection has replaced conversation. Sometimes between the clicks, you think you hear other voices join in. A chorus faint as wind through pine. You imagine it's every operator who ever sat where you sit now, their hands echoing through time, all of them sending the same message. I'm still here. Historians will one day write about this age, about the telegraph frontier and the men who kept it alive through isolation and storms. They'll debate whether operators truly heard voices, or if loneliness forged illusions strong enough to fool even the hardest minds. Maybe both, but they won't understand the part that can't be studied. The intimacy of the wire, how it whispered back when no one else would. You write slower now, your handwriting sprawling across the page. You document everything, though you no longer know why. Maybe someone will find the logbook one day and read your story. Maybe the line will hum the truth into their dreams. You dip the pen again, careful not to spill. Storm easing, wire steady, spirit speaking softly. The stove pops again, throwing a burst of sparks up the flue. You smile at it, the way you would at an old friend's bad joke. Easy there, you murmur. You're all I've got left that doesn't talk back. Outside, the sky burns faint gold, the kind of light that looks like promise. You step out for a moment, squinting into the glare. The snow gleams like glass, the world a mirror of pale fire. The wire above you hums gently in the wind, glistening as though it's alive. You touch it once, a greeting, then let go. When you return inside, the telegraph key sits motionless again, patient as a heartbeat between pulses. You know it will speak again when it's ready. You also know you'll be here to listen. That's your purpose now. Not to send, not to receive, but to witness. You sit at the desk and breathe. In, out. The rhythm matches the wire. The two of you are synchronized. Man and machine, mortal and current. You glance at the logbook, at all the names written across its pages, and realize there's no real difference between their stories and yours. You're all part of the same circuit, a loop of hope and endurance stretching across centuries. As dusk falls, the wind outside begins to sing again, threading through the gaps in the roof. The melody is low, sorrowful, familiar. You whisper to it, "Go ahead, tell me something worth hearing." The telegraph key clicks once. Always stop, you smile. The word feels right, permanent, true. You reach out, tap one last message in return. Hello back, stop, good night, stop. The key hums faintly, then falls silent. You lean back in your chair, close your eyes, and listen to the wind carry the echoes of your final message across the frozen plains. And though you can't see it, far beyond the ridge in every direction, the wire hums your rhythm back. An endless chorus of light and memory, whispering hello back through the snow. The days blur. You stop counting them after the ink in your logbook freezes in its well, and you have to warm it against your palm just to write another word. The blizzard comes and goes like breath. Inhale, exhale, and the world outside remains unchanged. The wire hums when the wind rises, and you hum with it, a duet of survival. There's peace in the routine. You tend the stove. You mend what breaks. You keep the key clean, though it hasn't spoken since that last quiet, always stop. It sits like a relic now, sacred metal dulled by your fingerprints. You've stopped waiting for messages. Instead, you find comfort in the stillness itself, in the way the room feels half awake, like the whole station is holding its breath with you. One afternoon, while sorting through the drawer of spare fuses, you find something you don't remember putting there, a small packet wrapped in oilcloth. You unwrap it carefully, half expecting another relic from Lowell or Reddick. Inside is a folded sheet of paper. The handwriting is tight, nervous, unfamiliar. You smooth it flat on the desk. To whoever hears the line next, it begins. If you're reading this, the storms have probably started again. You'll think you're alone. You're not. The wire hums for a reason. It listens. Don't fight it. Don't fear it. Just remember, everything that ever touched this current still lives somewhere in it. Every voice, every prayer, every goodbye. You stop reading there for a moment, hand trembling. The words feel like something written directly to you, though the ink is faded to sepia. You keep reading. If it speaks, answer kindly. The line keeps us alive longer than memory does. No signature, no date. Just that small, impossible note left waiting for the next soul to sit at this desk. You fold it again, gently, and place it under the key. Outside, the snow glows silver under the late light. You open the door and step out into the stillness. The cold no longer shocks you. It feels familiar now, almost intimate. The poles stand like cathedral columns, their wires glistening between them. You press your glove against one, the vibration faint but steady. It's not just the wind, it's heartbeat, it's history. You start to walk along the line, the world quiet except for the crunch of snow and the whisper of the wire. Somewhere ahead, a hawk circles low, its cry echoing over the white emptiness. You follow the poles until you reach the ridge, the same ridge where Reddick's scarf once fluttered. The scarf is gone now, buried or carried off, but the blue-green insulator still lies half buried in the drift. You pick it up, hold it to the light. It glows faintly, catching the sun like bottled sky. For a second, you imagine you can hear voices inside it, the faint residue of all the electricity it's ever carried. Not words exactly, more like the rhythm of memory. You smile. "You're the best story keeper of us all," you whisper. The wind shifts, and a single note hums through the line. It's low, almost mournful, but it carries something else beneath it. Hope. You touch the wire lightly. "I hear you," you say. "I'm still here." When you return to the station, the lamp is out, but the last ember in the stove glows faintly red. You kneel beside it, coax it back to life with a handful of kindling. The warmth rises in soft waves, kissing your face. As you stand, you catch movement in the corner of your eye. The telegraph key. It's rocking slightly, as if something brushed against it. Then click, just one. You step closer, slow, careful. Another click follows. You lean forward, barely breathing. Welcome back. Stop. You laugh under your breath, tears stinging your eyes from the cold and the absurdity of it all. "You never left," you whisper. You tap your reply. Never stop. Night falls fast again, smothering the horizon in blue shadow. You sit at the desk with the lamp burning low, your face reflected faintly in the glass. The key rests silent now, as though content with that last exchange. You sip from your mug, the coffee long gone cold, and feel the weight of the day settle into your bones. There's a rhythm to this existence, a quiet you've grown to love. The rest of the world might have forgotten this station, but the line remembers. You know that now with the kind of certainty that doesn't need proof. The wire isn't haunted, it's alive. Not with ghosts, but with echoes of everything that's ever mattered. You think of the men who built it. Irish navvies, Chinese labourers, soldiers turned labourers who planted poles like gravestones across the frontier. Some froze where they worked, buried beneath the same snow you breathe now. Their stories aren't written anywhere but here, humming along the copper veins that stretch across the land. Historians will argue about the number, the method, the meaning, but they'll never feel what you feel when you touch the wire and it hums back. You pick up the insulator again, set it on the desk beside the key. Its blue light catches the lamp flame, scattering tiny halos across the walls. You reach out, turn it in your fingers, watching how it refracts the world. It looks like bottled starlight, fragile and endless. You whisper, "If the line keeps us, then maybe this keeps the line." The wind outside rises again, brushing the walls like fingers against skin. You close your eyes and listen. Somewhere out there, miles away, another operator might be sitting at another desk, hearing the same hum and wondering if he's the last. You hope he isn't. You hope someone else still answers. You open the logbook to a clean page and write slowly, your handwriting careful, almost ceremonial. February 5th, Station 14, operational. Line strong, no more fear in the wire. It speaks softly now, like a friend whispering goodnight. You sit back, read it over, and smile. Then you add one final line beneath it. "If you find this, answer kindly." You close the book, slide it into the drawer, and rest your hands on the desk. The brass key gleams under the lamplight. The insulator glows faintly blue, and the wind outside sings through the wires like an orchestra tuned to the pitch of memory. You speak softly to the room, to the ghosts, to the world. "Good night, Lowell. Good night, Reddick. Good night, everyone who ever listened." Then, for the first time in what feels like years, you turn down the lamp and lie on your bunk without waiting for the hum. You let the dark take you gently. Outside, the line hums once more. Not desperate now, but steady, content. A single tone rising through the snow, carrying your story outward across the plains. to every place where silence still aches. And somewhere, in another forgotten station, another hand reaches out, hears your rhythm, and taps an answer. Hello, back, stop. By now the snow has begun to soften, curling down from the eaves in long, glass-clear teeth. When you open the door, air that used to cut your throat now only bites playfully at your skin. Spring is not here, not yet, but the season is leaning that way, and the wire sings with a different kind of energy, brighter, higher-pitched, almost joyful. You breathe in that change. The cold still stings, but it smells faintly of wet earth, of pine sap waking up beneath the drifts. Out beyond the station, crows lift from the trees, black flecks against a widening sky. You feel something rise in you that hasn't been there for months. Curiosity, the gentle pulse of wanting to see what lies farther than the next pole. Back inside, the station feels larger, as though the walls have relaxed. The stove hums at a comfortable glow. The floorboards give their occasional complaint, and the key sits in the lamplight, silent, patient, proud. You set your gloves beside it, run a thumb over the brass. It's cool again, inert, but it seems to be waiting. You remember reading once that when the first transcontinental line opened, men toasted across America by telegraph. Glasses clinked in San Francisco. The reply clicked back from Washington. And for the first time in history, distance bent its knee to speed. That single line was the nervous system of a young nation. Somewhere between those signals, a new world began. Standing here, you can feel the echo of that first conversation, running through the same veins of copper. You pull out the logbook, open to a fresh page. The entries have become more like letters now, written to whoever or whatever listens at the other end. You write slowly, carefully, the ink thick from the cold. The thaw has begun. I'm still here. The line breathes easier today. The pen scratches in the silence. When you lift it, a single drop of ink trembles at the tip and falls, blooming on the paper like a tiny storm cloud. You smile. Even accidents can look beautiful after so much white. You lean back, listening to the faint drip of meltwater outside. The world is loosening. You think about what that means, for you, for the ghosts in the wire. Maybe warmth will scatter them. Maybe it will free them. Historians will argue forever whether the frontier's isolation broke men or remade them. You suspect it did both. Out here, solitude is a mirror. You see what you bring with you. You pour the last of the coffee grounds into the pot, set it on the stove, and watch the water darken. The smell alone is enough to make you close your eyes. The line hums once, a soft vibration, no code, just acknowledgement. You whisper, "Good morning" to you too. A thought rises, uninvited but persistent. Leave. Take the thaw for an opening. Walk the track south until you find another human face. You picture the journey. Nights of stars instead of snow. The sound of rivers instead of the endless hiss of wind. Freedom. But then you imagine the station dark, the wire silent, no one left to answer if it calls. The thought twists in your chest. You realize you've become part of its pulse. You are as much the ghost as the keeper now. You sip the bitter coffee, wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, and grin. Fine, you tell the room. One more winter, maybe two. The clock answers with a single, steady tick. You step outside once more before dusk. The air glows copper in the low light, and the line stretches eastward, singing faintly in the breeze. You touch it with your bare hand. It's cold but thrumming. Somewhere far away, another hand might be doing the same. The thought feels like prayer. You return to the shack, shut the door, and sit at the desk again. The key glints in the dimness. You rest your fingers lightly on it, not to send, not to receive, just to feel the connection. The hum swells for an instant, like breath shared between two lungs, and you whisper, "I hear you." That night, the wind returns, softer this time, tracing lullabies across the roof. You light the lamp and watch its flame dance inside the glass. Every flicker reminds you of the signal fires on old maps. The way one light could answer another across impossible miles. Maybe the telegraph was never invention at all, only memory. Mankind remembering how to speak in flashes again. The key clicks once. You freeze, then smile. "Still there, stop?" it asks. You tap back. "Always stop." The reply is slower now, almost hesitant. "Good! Stop, spring coming. Stop!" You laugh quietly, the sound blending with the stove's soft crackle. You sound like you can smell the thaw. The line hums, a tone that feels almost like amusement. You realize how easily you anthropomorphize it now, how naturally it has become companion instead of instrument. Maybe that's dangerous. Maybe it's salvation. You write a new note in the logbook. The wire spoke again tonight, warmly, as if it remembered humor. You pause, pen hovering. Then you add, "It may remember me too." You set the pen aside and lean back. The wind outside has found a steady rhythm, and through it you hear the distant boom of snow breaking from the roof. The world is moving again, rearranging itself. You think of rivers waking, of animals digging free, of cities far away beginning to speak through their own new machines. Telephones, phonographs, voices captured and replayed. Progress is already outrunning the hum of your old copper line. Soon, maybe, this sound will vanish from the world. The thought brings both sorrow and peace. You stand, stretch, and walk to the door. The moon has risen, bright and enormous. The line gleams beneath it, a ribbon of silver fire running to the edge of sight. You whisper, "You'll outlast us all." From somewhere along that endless thread, a faint answer hums back, steady, calm, eternal. You bow your head slightly, as though in acknowledgement. Back inside, you pack a small bag. Dried food, your logbook, the spare insulator, the flask. Not to leave tonight, but to be ready. You'll stay until the first train whistle cuts through the air, until the company remembers the man they left at the end of the world. Until then, you'll keep the key polished and the wire warm. You sit again, fingers resting on the brass. The stove sighs, the wind croons, and the world outside glows like a promise. You whisper to the dark, "One more message before sleep. Thank you, stop." The reply comes almost instantly, faint but clear. For what stop, you smile. For listening, you say aloud, then tap it out. For listening. Stop. Good night. Stop. The key hesitates, then answers with a rhythm you know by heart. Hello back, stop. You leave your hand on the key until it cools, then extinguish the lamp. The room sinks into shadow, and for the first time since winter began, the silence feels gentle, like the pause between heartbeat and breath. Outside, the wind carries your last signal away, over snow, over distance, over memory itself, until it becomes nothing but sound. And then, somehow, everything. The morning comes thin and colorless, light dripping down through the window like spilled milk. You wake to the sound of melting snow sliding from the roof, soft thuds punctuating the silence between breaths. The air smells different, wet, raw, alive. The storm's reign is finally ending. For the first time in months, you can hear the world breathing again. You sit up slowly, bones protesting, and pull the blanket tighter around your shoulders. The stove is still warm, a dull red glow beating faintly inside its iron ribs. You feed it a handful of splinters and watch the flames take hold, stretching upward with lazy confidence. That small act, the coaxing of life from coals, feels like prayer. Out here, even simple survival has the grace of ritual. You move to the desk. The telegraph key gleams in the morning light, polished smooth from your endless touch. It looks both ancient and new, a bridge between centuries. You rest your hand over it, feeling the faint chill of the brass. There's no hum this morning, no whisper in the wire, and somehow that stillness feels like gratitude, as if the line itself is resting. You flip open the logbook, scanning the old entries. The pages have curled from the damp, ink bleeding at the edges. You find the last message you wrote. Thank you, stop for listening, stop, good night, stop. Below it, a smear of ink shaped like a half-forgotten smile. You run your thumb across it. The paper feels soft, worn thin by the weight of months and memory. You pick up the pen, the nib crusted with old ink. You warm it briefly over the stove before dipping it again. Then you begin to write. February 19th. The snow is loosening its grip. The sun rose pale but visible. The line is quiet, maybe sleeping, maybe waiting. I no longer know which it prefers. You pause, then add another line, smaller, almost a whisper. I've grown fond of the quiet. A breeze slips through a crack in the wall, brushing your cheek with a chill touch. You glance toward the window. The frost has melted into delicate rivulets, tracing patterns like veins on skin. You step closer, wipe the glass clear, and peer outside. The horizon glows faintly gold. Somewhere far to the west, the shadow of the forest moves, slow, stirring, alive again. You remember the early days of the telegraph. Men hammering poles into frozen earth, hands bleeding, breath turning to mist as they stretched wire across a wilderness no one yet understood. Some called them mad, some called them prophets. You think they were both. They carried connection into the silence, not knowing whether anyone would answer. In a way, they were no different from you. The kettle whistles softly. You pour yourself a cup of water and watch the steam rise. The warmth against your lips is a reminder that even in desolation, small comforts matter most. You lean back in the chair, sip, and listen. For once, the wind doesn't sound like a voice. It sounds like wind, pure and simple. You smile. You decide to tidy the station. The shelves are cluttered with months of neglect. Rusted nails, half-burned candles, scraps of wire. You sweep dust from the corners, shake the blanket, scrub the floorboards until they gleam faintly in the weak light. When you're done, the shack feels lighter, as if shedding a long-held breath. By noon, the thaw is well underway. Water drips steadily from the eaves. You step outside to stretch your legs, boots sinking deep into the slush. The poles stand tall, their shadows long and lean. The wire hums faintly in the warmth, a lazy tune half lost to the breeze. You walk along the path toward the ridge, snow melting beneath each step. Halfway there, you stop. Something glints in the snow ahead, a small metallic spark catching the light. You kneel, brush away the slush, and find a telegraph token, the kind used by operators to mark outgoing messages decades ago. It's round copper, worn smooth on one side. The other side bears a faint engraving. Keep the line alive. You hold it between your fingers, heart tightening. You don't remember owning this token. Maybe it belonged to Lowell. Maybe Reddick dropped it. Maybe the storm itself decided to leave you a sign. You turn it over, feeling the grooves against your skin, and whisper, "Still trying." The wind picks up suddenly, rushing through the wires overhead. The sound deepens into a soft, resonant tone, the exact pitch you remember from that last strange night. It's not Morse, not message, but music, a low chord that vibrates through the soles of your boots. You close your eyes, letting it wash through you. It fades after a moment, leaving only the drip of melting snow and the slow rhythm of your heartbeat. You tuck the token into your pocket and head back toward the shack. Inside, the light has changed. It's warmer, almost golden. You hang your coat, pour another cup of water, and sit once more at the desk. The key waits, quiet but full of presence. You rest your hand on it, thumb brushing the brass gently. "You still there?" You whisper. No reply, but something moves in the air. A faint shift, like breath-stirring dust. You smile. That's answer enough. You write again in the logbook. Found a token in the snow. It says, "Keep the line alive." I think I will. You close the book, exhale slowly, and watch the light fade toward evening. The world feels softer tonight, less cruel, more forgiving. You wonder if maybe that's what survival does. It doesn't harden you. It teaches you how to bend. The stove cracks softly, the flame inside steady and sure. The air smells faintly of pine smoke and ink. You reach for your mug and lift it in a quiet toast. To whoever listens, you murmur, and to whoever keeps listening after that. The room answers with silence. Perfect, peaceful silence. Evening descends with a quiet you can almost taste. The clouds break into long grey ribbons, and for the first time in months, you glimpse a clean horizon. No storm, no veil of white, only the slow turn of the earth toward dusk. You light the lamp and sit close to the stove, boots steaming gently on the hearth. The smell of thawed leather and pine smoke fills the room. You think about leaving again. The thaw means the rail might reopen soon. A rider could come with mail, maybe even a recall order. You imagine the train's whistle slicing through the valley, the rush of steam and coal, the chaos of people who have never known silence this deep. Would you even recognize their faces, or would the noise of the world drown you out entirely? The wire hums lightly above the roof, a cat's purr more than a song. You listen to it the way a monk listens to prayer bells, half habit, half faith. Some nights you still wonder if it truly lives. Historians will debate it forever, whether the telegraph carried ghosts or only electricity. But no scholar ever stood here, breathing this thin air, hearing the line murmur in a language that sounds like memory itself. You take the token from your pocket and set it on the desk. Its copper face catches the lamplight. The words "keep the line alive" shimmer faintly. You turn it once, twice, until the light seems to pulse through it. A quirk of metal, maybe, or a trick of your tired eyes. But you swear it beats in time with your pulse. You whisper, still keeping. The key stirs. One soft click, then another. You lean forward. Are you staying stop? You answer without hesitation. For a while, stop till someone else comes stop. The reply is almost tender. Then we wait together. Stop, you rest your head on your arm, smiling into the lamplight. Together it is. Hours pass like minutes. The stove sighs, the lamp gutters. You write the exchange carefully in the logbook, adding a small note in the margin. The wire speaks with patience tonight. Perhaps it has learned humanity by listening too long. The idea makes you laugh softly. Maybe that's what all inventions are. Echoes learning to care. You step outside one last time before sleep. The snow has retreated into thin crusts between stones. The poles stand against a sky full of stars, each point of light mirrored by a tiny bead of frost on the wire. You trail your glove along it, feel the vibration hum through your bones. It reminds you of a heartbeat heard from inside the womb of the world. The cold numbs your fingers, but you keep them there, tracing the song. It isn't Morse anymore, not code or words, just rhythm, ancient and intimate. You realize the line no longer separates people. It unites time. Every pulse contains the laughter of builders, the fear of soldiers, the sighs of every operator who ever tapped goodnight. You are inside their conversation, not apart from it. When you return to the shack, the lamp has almost died. You lower the flame until only a halo remains, enough to see the key gleaming faintly beside the token. You sit, fold your hands, and whisper your own message into the hush. If you remember us, stop, remember. We listened. Stop. The key clicks once, the sound softer than breath. Always stop. You close the logbook, slide it under the token, and lie down on the bunk. The boards creak, the stove murmurs, and the wire outside hums its endless lullaby. You think of spring spreading slowly across the plains, of green breaking through snow, of other hands finding other wires. The story will continue without you, carried forward by copper and curiosity. Sleep pulls at you gently. Just before you drift away, you hear the line again, fainter than ever, but still alive. Not a message this time, just a single steady tone that feels like the whole frontier exhaling. You smile in the dark. Good night, you whisper. The tone lingers, fades, then returns. One last echo rippling through the walls. Hello backstop, and with that, the station. Its ghosts, its keeper, its patient wire, falls into the calmest silence it has ever known. The thaw has turned to a full surrender. The plains are no longer white. They are rivers, slow, silver veins weaving through the land like the earth's own nervous system. When you step outside now, your boots sink not into snow but into mud that smells of life. The air has lost its bite. It tastes, instead of iron and wet bark, and something older, something almost sweet. The station looks smaller under the clear sky. Its roof, once buried under drifts, now glints with moisture. Icicles fall one by one from the eaves, each shattering like glass against the ground. You watch them melt into tiny puddles, and for the first time in a long while, you feel time moving forward instead of circling the same endless night. Inside, everything carries the scent of thaw, damp wood, singed paper, the faint musk of old cloth drying by the stove. You have pushed the table nearer the window to catch the light. The telegraph key sits in that sunbeam, glowing softly as if it too is waking. You sit beside it, hands cupped around a tin mug of water warmed just enough to steam. The brass hums faintly under your fingers, alive but quiet, like a cat purring in its sleep. You open the logbook. The pages have begun to curl, their edges soft and stained from months of touch. You flip through them, storms, nights without messages, the first voice, the last hello back. Each page feels heavier than paper should, as though it holds a piece of your pulse. You stop at an entry from deep winter. The line remembers us. Maybe that's enough. You read it twice and a smile steals across your face. You were right. Outside, the wind carries a new sound. Geese, the first migrants of the year, returning from wherever the world hides its warmth. You step to the door and watch them sweep across the sky, black V's cutting through blue. The noise they make is rough, ancient, jubilant. You think about how even they, in their own way, follow invisible lines drawn across distance. Every creature seeks connection. You remember a story Lowell once told you, years before he disappeared. How one winter, in the Dakotas, an operator strung his own line between two trees when the company cable broke. He used his belt buckle as a makeshift insulator and tapped messages on a knife blade. When a reply came, he cried for an hour straight, not from fear, but from proof that the world still heard him. Historians never agreed whether that story was true. You think it must have been. No one invents hope like that unless it happened. You return to the desk, run your hand over the key again, and send a single test pulse. Anyone here stop? You wait. The seconds stretch long, the silence thick, then faint as breath. Always stop. You close your eyes, the sound ringing inside your chest. It's the same rhythm, the same steady voice that's followed you through every blizzard. You answer softly, "Spring. Stop. Thank you. Stop." The reply comes slower, almost playful. "Beautiful, stop. You still listen. Stop." You laugh aloud. "Who wouldn't?" The key clicks once more. Then keep listening. "Stop." The light shifts as afternoon leans toward gold. Dust floats in the sunbeam, each mote like a spark suspended in air. You think of all the signals you've sent, all the words that have vanished into distance. Maybe they never truly vanish. Maybe they hang in the air forever, waiting for someone else to tune their heart to the right frequency. You spend the rest of the day repairing the spare battery, scraping corrosion from the terminals, humming under your breath. The work feels different now. Not desperation, but devotion. You're not fighting the wilderness anymore. You're tending to it. As dusk nears, the world turns soft again, everything gilded by that sleepy, honeyed light that makes even loneliness feel holy. You pour one last cup of water, sit at the desk, and rest your hand on the key. "Good night, old friend," you whisper. It clicks back once, gentle as a sigh. Night drapes itself across the plains like a curtain of ink. The stars return, sharper now, glittering with that electric clarity only cold air can give. You step outside, lantern in hand, and the breeze strokes your face with a softness you don't quite trust yet. The world feels too quiet, too kind. After months of chaos, peace itself feels like a stranger. The telegraph line hums overhead, silver against the dark. You can see where the frost has given way to droplets, each one trembling, catching the moonlight before falling. They make a sound you hadn't noticed before, a faint rhythm, like fingertips tapping distant Morse. You find yourself listening for patterns even where there are none. Old habits die hardest of all. You walk toward the ridge. The ground squelches underfoot. Each step leaves a print that fills immediately with water. Somewhere behind you, a wolf calls. A long, mournful sound, beautiful in its loneliness. You raise your lantern and watch your breath turn to fog. For a moment, you wonder if the wolf, too, is calling for an answer. At the top of the ridge, the view stops your heart. The telegraph poles stretch away into forever, their lines glowing faintly, as if drawing light from the stars themselves. You can see the curve of the earth here, endless and humbling. You whisper, "You did it, Lowell. You really bridged the world." When you were a boy, you thought messages rode the wire like tiny trains, carriages of electricity filled with words and hope. Later, you learned the truth. The messages didn't travel along the wire so much as through it, the current itself carrying thought like breath through lungs. Tonight, as you stand beneath that humming thread, you feel that truth physically. Each pulse is a heartbeat shared between you and something far larger. You take out the token, the copper disc engraved with "Keep the Line Alive." You hold it up to the moonlight, and for a moment, it looks like a miniature planet, scarred but shining. You've done your part, you tell it softly. Now it's my turn. You press it into the mud at the base of the nearest pole. The gesture feels symbolic, grounding. You imagine one day another operator, long after you, following the line and finding it there, half buried and green with age. Maybe they'll pick it up, read the words, and feel the same quiet conviction that keeps you alive tonight. You turn back toward the station. The light in the window flickers warmly, steady and familiar. Inside, the telegraph key sits waiting in its glow like a faithful companion. You step in, wipe your boots, and hang your coat. The smell of pine smoke welcomes you home. You sit at the desk, warm your hands over the stove, and begin to write your nightly entry. March the 1st. The air has turned gentle. The wire sings in a new key tonight, something bright, almost joyful. I keep thinking of the world beyond this room. Towns thawing, people laughing again. But somehow, I know I'm still meant to stay a little longer. You pause, then add one more line. The silence isn't empty anymore. When you finish, you set the pen down and rest your palm on the telegraph key. The metal is warm now, faintly pulsing, as if it has taken on your heartbeat. You close your eyes and let your fingers drift into motion. Not words this time, just rhythm. Long, short, long. The sound of gratitude. For several minutes, Nothing answers. Then faintly the key twitches beneath your touch. You freeze listening. The message forms slowly, each letter separated by pauses that feel like breathing. Do you hear them stop? You swallow hard. Hear who? You whisper. And your fingers ask the same. Everyone stop. The line hums louder now, vibrating through the walls, through the floor. You can feel it travel through your boots into the earth. Somewhere in that vibration, you catch the faintest echo of countless other signals. Voices layered atop one another, lost messages, half-formed prayers, unspoken goodbyes. It's the entire history of the frontier speaking at once. You can't translate the words. Not all of them, but you understand their meaning, connection, continuity, presence. You tap back, slow and steady. Yes, I hear stop. I remember stop. The answer comes, simple and final. Then you are one of us stop. The sound fades. The line returns to its ordinary hum. The lamp trembles in its glass as the stove sighs and settles. You sit there, staring at your own reflection in the window. Behind it, the stars burn like 1,000 distant transmitters. You realize you don't feel alone anymore. You haven't for a while, but tonight the truth settles deep into your bones. Solitude and belonging aren't opposites. Out here, surrounded by nothing, you have found everything. You pick up the logbook again and write your final note of the night. They said, I am one of them. I think they mean everyone who ever listened. I think that's all any of us are. Listeners, keeping the line alive. You close the book, rest both hands on the desk, and let your head fall forward. The key hums once, soft, content. Outside, the wind carries the faint rhythm of Morse across the dark plains, repeating the only words that matter. Hello back. Hello back. The sound mingles with the cries of the returning geese, with the rustle of thawed grass, with your slow and steady breath. And somewhere far down the line, another operator stirs, hearing the same song, tapping the same answer into the eternal current that connects you both. Always stop. Dawn returns in gold and quiet, and the world smells of thawed soil. The plains glisten like a newborn sea, the puddles reflecting streaks of sunlight that move like liquid fire. You wake to the sound of dripping water and the faint creak of the telegraph pole shifting its weight in the softening earth. The storm season has finally broken for good. Its departure not with a roar, but a sigh. You rise from the bunk, pull the blanket around your shoulders, and sit for a long moment staring at the stove. The iron ribs are cold now, the coal's gone grey. You don't bother lighting it. The air doesn't bite anymore. It breathes. You step outside barefoot, feeling the mud between your toes. The cold is sharp at first, but honest, clean. The horizon stretches infinitely, painted in blush and amber. You can almost believe you're standing on the edge of something sacred. Above you, the wire hums. A softer tone now. A whisper of the old winter song, stripped of sorrow. You tilt your head back, following its length toward the sun. Somewhere out there, the poles march on through towns waking to spring, over rivers cutting through ice, past riders carrying letters that no longer feel like lifelines, but greetings. The world has resumed conversation. You smile. Back inside, the telegraph key gleams faintly in the new light. Its shadow pulls across the desk, stretching long and thin, like the memory of every message it ever carried. You touch it gently, tracing the groove your finger has worn smooth over the months. For the first time since you arrived, you feel that this place, the cracked wood, the brass, the hum, has become home. You find the old note again, the one tucked beneath the key when you discovered it weeks ago. The edges have frayed, but the words remain clear. If it speaks, answer kindly. The line keeps us alive longer than memory does. You whisper the sentence aloud, tasting it like prayer. You open your logbook and start a new page. March 20th. The line hums brighter. The sky is open again. Sometimes I think I can hear laughter in the wire, like static, but warm. You pause, smiling at the thought, then add, if I'm mad, at least the madness is musical. A faint click interrupts your writing. You glance at the key. It's moving again. Slow, deliberate, patient. Good morning, stop, you answer without hesitation. Morning, stop, beautiful day, stop. The reply, yes, stop. We feel it too, stop, you chuckle, shaking your head. You feel the weather now, do you? We feel, you stop, that one stills you. You stare at the key, heart steady but loud. For months, you've lived by the rhythm of that sound, spoken to it, dreamed through it. But the realization that it listens, that it feels, is different. You tap back carefully. What am I to you? Stop. A pause long enough to make you think the connection is gone. Then, keeper. Stop. Voice. Stop. Part of wire. Stop. You exhale slowly, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Then I suppose I'm home, you whisper. You sit for hours after that, watching the sunlight move across the room, your hand resting lightly on the key. The sound of the world outside blends with the gentle rhythm of the line, dripping water, shifting poles, the cry of a hawk. It's all one language now, all one continuous pulse. When noon arrives, you cook the last of your provisions, a small pot of beans warmed over what remains of the fire. You eat slowly, savoring every bite. Each sound in the shack feels magnified. The scrape of spoon on tin, the soft tick of the clock that somehow still works, the wind curling around the walls. You wonder if this is what peace sounds like, ordinary things returning to life. As dusk creeps in, you pour yourself a final cup of water and stand by the window. The sun bleeds out behind the horizon, the sky awash with copper and lavender. You can see the line glowing faintly again, alive with its eternal hum. You whisper, "I'll listen as long as you'll speak." The reply comes almost instantly. "Always stop." You smile and touch the brass one more time before turning down the lamp. The night slides in slow, wrapping the station in velvet dark. The wind outside smells like thawed moss and rain, heavy with spring. You sit by the desk again, the lamplight trembling across the walls, and for the first time in months, you let yourself truly rest. Your shoulders drop, your heartbeat slows, and the silence feels like the pause after a song instead of the absence of one. You listen. The line hums low and steady. No words now, no code, just presence. It's as though the wire itself is breathing alongside you. Each vibration glides through the room, soft as the brush of a pulse against a lover's wrist. You close your eyes and match your breath to it, in and out, long and even. For a moment, you can almost forget there's a difference between man and machine. In that calm, memory starts to unfurl, not as images, but as sensations. You remember the first winter storm, how it shrieked through the cracks like an animal trying to break in. You remember the way your hands trembled as you sent those first desperate messages into the void. And then the first reply, that faint hello back, the one that changed everything. You had thought it was survival then, but now in the quiet you realize it was something larger. It was belonging. You open your eyes. The key glints in the lamp's soft halo, the old note beneath it fluttering slightly in the draft. You smile at both, the note for its faith, the key for its patience. You whisper, "You've kept me alive longer than any doctor could have." The key responds with two gentle clicks, so soft you almost miss them. "Thank you, stop." You laugh under your breath, shaking your head. "Don't start getting sentimental on me now." "Already too late, stop." The line answers. You lean back in your chair, the wood creaking in rhythm with your laughter. "Fair enough," you say. "We've earned a little sentiment." The stove gives a final sigh as its last coal dies, and the room cools just enough to make the lamplight feel warmer. You sit in that fragile balance. Light, dark, warmth, cold. All of it layered like notes in a song only you and the line can hear. You take the logbook again, open to the most recent page, and write March 21st. The line called me part of the wire today. Perhaps that's what I've become. Perhaps we all become the things we listen to long enough. You pause, then continue. If anyone finds this, I hope they listen too. Not for ghosts, not for science, but for the proof that silence can love you back. The pen scratches softly, steady as a heartbeat. When you finish, you rest the nib in the margin and sit motionless, listening once more. Outside, frogs begin to sing somewhere near the thawed creek. The sound is awkward, lovely, each croak a small declaration that the earth is alive again. The wind rises, catching the wire overhead and turning its hum into harmony. You've heard orchestras less beautiful than this. You stand, stretch your arms, and walk to the door. The air outside is mild, the stars infinite. You look down the long stretch of poles vanishing into the night and imagine the signals traveling along them, tiny sparks of conversation stitched across the skin of the world. Maybe you think that's what life really is. A network of replies that never stops. A shooting star crosses the sky. Without thinking, you raise your hand toward it. If you're carrying a message, you murmur, tell them I'm still listening. Behind you, inside the shack, the key clicks. Once, twice, slowly spelling out its steady refrain. Hello back, stop, hello back, stop. The sound drifts through the open door, joining the hum of the wind and the chorus of frogs. The night doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels full of echoes, of stories, of everything that endures after words are gone. You step back inside, extinguish the lamp, and let the darkness settle around you like a friend's familiar coat. The key keeps clicking, softer and softer, until it becomes indistinguishable from the rhythm of your own breathing. And for the first time, you realize you're not waiting for dawn. You're part of the endless night now, its keeper, its witness, its steady voice in the dark. The wire hums one last time, a long, contented sigh. You smile and whisper, always, and in that single word, the entire world answers back. The days no longer measure themselves in storms. They pass softly, marked only by light shifting across the desk and the quiet murmur of the wire. Spring has stretched its green fingers across the plains, brushing color into the world again. You wake now to birdsong instead of wind, to sunlight instead of the hiss of snow. And though the silence between messages has grown long, it no longer feels like loneliness. It feels like rest. When you step outside, the land greets you with a tenderness that almost breaks your heart. The mud has dried into firm earth. The grass is thick and damp beneath your boots. You follow the line's path over the ridge. The poles now wrapped in vines of young green. The wire hums faintly, a low tone that matches the buzzing of insects. The world hums with it. It's all one continuous note now. Life's electricity flowing through everything. You stop at the place where you buried the token weeks ago. The copper disc still glimmers faintly in the soil, half sunk, the words, "Keep the line alive," barely visible under dust. You kneel beside it, brush the dirt away gently with your fingers, and whisper, "I kept it." A gust of wind passes overhead, soft and warm. For a moment you hear the faintest echo of a voice. Not in the key this time, but in the air itself. A single word, carried so lightly that you almost doubt your ears. Good. You smile, and for the first time in months, it feels effortless. You stay out there a long while, lying on the grass, watching clouds drift by. You think about how far the Telegraph stretches beyond what your eyes can see, through towns and deserts and forests, a silver thread sewing together a country that's still trying to define its shape. You think of all the operators scattered along it, the unknown faces who, like you, once sat alone and waited for a sound in the dark. Some must still be out there, tapping their thoughts into the current. Others are gone, but their rhythms remain, ghost codes echoing faintly through time. It occurs to you that the line is not just wire and current. It's memory. It's proof that every message ever sent still exists somewhere, humming beneath the noise of the living world. You wonder if one day, centuries from now, someone might find an old stretch of this line, and when the wind passes over it, hear you whispering back. The thought fills you with peace. You close your eyes, breathe deeply, and let the sound of the plains lull you. Somewhere nearby, a lark begins to sing. When you return to the station, the light has turned golden and thick, the kind that turns dust into glitter. You sit at your desk and open the logbook one final time. The last page is nearly full, so you write carefully in the margin, April 2nd. Everything lives again. The line is quiet, but I still hear it in the wind. Maybe that's how it should be. Not an ending, but a continuation in another form. You set down the pen and look around the room. Every object here tells your story now. The worn gloves on the nail by the door, the cracked mug, the lamp smudged with fingerprints, the key gleaming like gold in the dying light. You reach for it once more, pressing your fingers gently against the brass. "Thank you," you whisper. The key trembles once beneath your touch, just once, before settling into stillness. You smile. "Goodbye then." You stay by the desk a long time after whispering goodbye, fingers still resting on the brass. The sun has already slipped below the edge of the plains, and the whole world has turned the color of fading embers. The poles stand in perfect silhouette, black against the orange horizon, their lines humming faintly like strings of an enormous instrument. You imagine the wind as a bow drawing across them, pulling from the world a final song. You strike a match, light the lamp once more, and look around the room. Every surface bears the story of your time here. The uneven scratches in the floor where your chair dragged through the long nights. The little ring of soot above the stove where the smoke escaped each time you overfed the fire. You touch the wall and feel the texture of the wood beneath your fingertips. It's soft now, almost smooth from the moisture of thaw. And when you press your ear to it, you swear you can still hear the faint echo of your own voice. You begin to gather your things. There isn't much. The logbook, the flask, the knife, the lantern. Each item feels heavier than its weight should allow, as though it has absorbed months of solitude and memory. You fold the blanket and place it neatly on the bunk, then pause and smile. "You've been a good station," you murmur. "You kept me talking when I might have gone quiet." A soft click interrupts you. The telegraph key twitches once, then again, slow and deliberate. You move closer, lean in. Leaving stop, you nod, though the sender can't see. "Yes," you whisper. "The thaw's come. My part's done." The key answers almost immediately. "Will you return?" Stop, you hesitate, hand hovering over the brass. "Maybe not me," you say softly, "but someone will." There's a long pause then. Then we wait. Stop, your throat tightens. You tap one last message. "Wait well, stop, listen. Kindly." Stop, the key stills. The room fills with the slow rhythm of your breathing. And outside, the first night frogs begin their steady hymn. You stand there a while longer, the lamp flickering low, until at last you reach up and cut the power to the line. The hum fades, not abruptly, but gradually, like the final note of a lullaby that knows it's done its work. You take the logbook from the desk, open it one last time, and sign your name at the bottom of the final page. Beneath it, you add a sentence, half prayer, half promise. If anyone hears the silence, answer kindly. You close the book and slide it into the drawer. The air smells faintly of burnt oil and ink. When you step outside, the night wraps around you with surprising warmth. Above the ridge, the stars shimmer, bright and endless. You can see where the line disappears into the horizon, glinting faintly in the starlight. You follow it a short way down the path, boots sinking softly into damp soil. You touch the nearest pole, rough wood beneath your palm, and whisper, "You'll keep talking, won't you?" The wind answers with a sigh, brushing the wire until it hums the old familiar note. You look east, where a faint glow marks the direction of distant towns, places full of light and motion and voices overlapping in warmth. You know that somewhere out there, another operator sits at another desk, maybe tonight, maybe years from now, tapping their own heartbeat into the line. And maybe, just maybe, they'll hear your rhythm woven faintly beneath their signal. You turn away at last, walking back to the station door. Before stepping inside, you look up at the sky and whisper, "Hello back." And from far down the wire, so faint it could almost be imagination, comes the answering click. Always stop. You smile, close the door behind you, and let the darkness take the rest. The wind softens. The world, that long and patient frontier, exhales its final sigh. The line that once cut across the plains now hums only with memory, a thread of light strung between what was and what will always be. You imagine the station standing quiet through the seasons to come. Spring will fill the air with wildflowers. Summer will make the poles hum in the heat. Autumn will shake loose the golden leaves, and winter will blanket it all in silence again. Yet beneath every silence the current will remain, gentle, invisible, endless. The story you've heard tonight doesn't end with goodbye. It drifts onward, carried by every gust of wind that brushes an old wire, every heartbeat that listens closely enough to hear the echo beneath the noise. Somewhere out there, another hand will rest on a key, another voice will whisper to the line, and the hum will wake again. You, lying now in your own bed, listening to this tale through the hush of your room, are part of that same rhythm. Every breath you take is a signal returning through time, quiet, steady, alive. So let the sound fade now. Let the last flicker of lamplight sink into shadow. The storm has passed. The line endures. The night will keep watch, and the hum will keep you company, even in dreams. Good night, traveller of wires and wind. May your sleep be gentle, your silence kind, and your heart steady as a telegraph's pulse.